Inside a meat processing plant, live animals hung dangling from the ceiling. The butcher, wearing a red apron and holding two cleavers, walked forward, followed by a man in a suit. The man asked how much meat was left. The butcher replied, "They just got 2 more in, so 5 total." He reminded him to arrange things neatly, as a big transaction was coming in a few days. The butcher grabbed the doorknob and turned it. "Haha, don't worry, this is our main source of income after all." Inside was a pile of human corpses, being expertly processed by the slaughterhouse staff. The man calmly said, "If the transaction is successful, we won't have to worry about money for a whole month." "So prepare well." He laughed and replied, "Haha, of course. That way I can have..." Hearing the butcher's sudden change in tone, the man's eyes widened in surprise. "Even more to eat." The butcher turned and stabbed him with the cleavers. He laughed menacingly and said aloud, "We're the ones dissecting the bodies, so the money should go in our pockets, you punk." But the man seemed to feel no pain or fear, still looking at the butcher with a cold expression. Seeing this, he immediately froze while a vein still bulged on his face. His cleavers couldn't seem to pierce the man's body. He repeated, in confusion. The butcher broke into a cold sweat, realizing he was in danger. "Why won't the knives cut him?" He stammered. "This is..." The man calmly adjusted his tie and asked, "Do you know how expensive this suit is, huh?" "It's very expensive, a special item, as you can see. It even blocks knives." Hearing this, the butcher flew into a rage and swung his cleavers to attack again. "Damn it, what the hell are you talking about?" Right after that, he suddenly yanked on his own tie. 3 buttons on his cuff suddenly lit up like a hidden piece of technology. He accelerated and teleported behind the butcher in a flash. The man noticed his disappearance and tried to turn around, but it was too late. With just a single push, he brutally slammed the butcher's head onto the floor. The slaughterhouse employees immediately froze, watching nervously as their boss was defeated. The man holding the butcher's head was the director of a grave-robbing company, Lee Tae-hyung. He let go of the butcher's head once his face was bloody and he was unconscious. Tae-hyung cursed these bastards. "They betray you at the first chance they get." He returned to his calm demeanor and adjusted his jacket as if this was a common occurrence. Before leaving, Tae-hyung ordered the remaining employees, "Chop him up and sell him." The scene changes to a city in Korea, with a brighter view thanks to the morning sun. At an apartment in the lowest unit, inside, a young man in ragged clothes sat in front of a computer screen. His name was Ji-won, and he was watching the screen, trembling with fear. "I'm out of money." At the foot of his chair was a mess of instant meal trays and undiscarded utensils. "Stocks are all gone. Crypto is gone too." Turns out this young man was playing the stock market but was on the verge of bankruptcy. He got so mad he kicked the computer and yelled, "Damn it, how did my account get wiped out?" But he only ended up hurting himself. The chair fell backward before he could put his foot down, and then Ji-won was lying on the floor amidst the mess he created. He finally lamented, "My life is such garbage." But he quickly corrected himself. "No, I said that wrong. My life was garbage from the start." Ji-won stared at the ceiling and continued to think like a deadbeat. "It's always the same. Nothing good or bad happens. No mom, no dad. My life has always been this way." After lying there sadly for a while, he finally sat up thinking, "I want to drown myself in the Han River. It must be nice to be a plant you just need to photosynthesize." Ji-won sighed, "But what can I do now? My security deposit is all gone too. I guess I have to get a part-time job at a convenience store." But he was suddenly startled by a loud knock on the door, accompanied by an urgent call from outside. "Hey, is Kim Ji-won in there?" Hearing that, Ji-won immediately scowled. Damn it. He then had to open the door and talk to the person outside. It was a blonde man who seemed to be there to collect rent. "Haha, how are you doing, sir?" Ji-won nervously replied, "I'll pay you next week." The landlord then asked, "Why didn't you pick up your phone?" He made an excuse and said, "You called. I had my phone on silent." The landlord then suddenly opened up. "No, I'm not here for rent money. Do you want a part-time job? It pays 50,000 won per job." Hearing something so unbelievable, he could only ask, "Huh?" After that, Ji-won found himself on a grave-robbing crew at night. It's not drug trafficking or fraud. It's a bit illegal, but not too bad. It's a job that involves dealing with the dead. After digging until he was out of breath, the team leader finally gave the order, Stop. Ji-won immediately caught his breath. He nervously wondered, is dealing with the dead digging up graves? Remembering that morning, the landlord had explained the job in detail. Pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies, cosmetics companies, a lot of places need corpses more than you think. Ji-won and the crew watched as the coffin was slowly lifted out, thinking our job is to prepare the bodies for them. Bodies that have been dead too long are difficult. Through funeral homes, staff, or truck drivers, we locate newly buried graves and then steal them at night. We can't make any noise, so we have to dig by hand. The team leader quickly gave another order, and they restored the site to its original state. Looking at a well-dressed man calmly smoking a cigarette, he wondered, is he the director? That's right, it was Lee Tae-hyung. He looks normal up close, but the longer you look, he looks like a dog. Ji-won judged him internally. His face looks like crap. A while later, the whole team carried the coffin back to the hole, and then started filling it with dirt. The landlord approached Ji-won from behind, and asked with a smile, what do you think, can you do it? He just forced a smile and replied, his expression betraying his words. It's not too bad. The pay is high, and it's not too difficult. And besides, no one gets hurt. The landlord replied, that's right, but there are some dangerous parts. Hearing that Ji-won's anxiety grew, suddenly he smirked menacingly. Although it's not often, but sometimes there are. Before Ji-won could hear the full sentence, the team leader ambushed him from behind, raising a shovel high, and slammed it hard on the back of his neck. Ji-won was instantly knocked out and collapsed at the landlord's feet. He sneered and said, because we also need fresh ones. The team leader looked at the landlord and asked, are you sure? He took out a cigarette and answered bluntly, yes, I'm sure his parents died a long time ago, and his relationships are a mess, so no one will be looking for him. Hearing that Tae-hyung trusted him and ordered, I'll reward you handsomely. Don't kill him yet. Tie him up tight and throw him in the warehouse. One of them replied, yes sir. While Ji-won was still unconscious with his eyes open, Tae-hyung observed and added a reminder to pack him up carefully, because he's a gift after all. After that, he was moved into a cold storage warehouse, his body tied up and his mouth gagged with tape. When Ji-won came to, the first thing he saw were corpses packaged in transparent bags. Scattered near where he was sitting, Ji-won struggled in panic and tried to scream but couldn't. He cursed in his mind, damn it, it's all corpses. What's going on? Human trafficking. Dead bodies, IZ. That bastard brought me here to turn me into a corpse. Ji-won panicked and looked for a way out. Smash that like button to root for Ji-won, and subscribe to Miss Manhwa to see what happens next. He slowly leaned against the wall and stood up. Calming himself down, getting agitated won't solve anything. First, I have to get these ropes off. As his eyes scanned the room, Ji-won quickly noticed something. His eyes were drawn upward, to where metal objects were frozen over due to the cold temperature. That is, Ji-won noticed the sharp frozen bars of a folding ladder. Outside, a man was spinning a keychain on his finger, humming as he walked. He was heading towards the storage room door. It was the landlord, he was thinking as he walked. I feel a little bad, but oh well, it has nothing to do with me, and I'm getting a hefty reward. He's probably still out cold, huh? With that thought, he put the key in the doorknob and opened it. His eyes widened with excitement and a thrilled smile as he said, Ji-won, time to go to heaven. But when he looked inside, he was startled with shock. Ji-won had woken up early and untied himself. He immediately punched the landlord in the face, knocking him painfully backward. Ji-won shouted curses at this bastard. He continuously punched him in the face, giving him no chance to fight back. While punching, Ji-won cursed, you bastard. You dared to sell me. A moment later, he stopped to look at his handiwork. The landlord was beaten beyond recognition, and his glasses were shattered into 100 pieces. Ji-won wiped the sweat from his face, his brows still furrowed. He then continued as the man was still struggling to breathe. You bastard. I wasted my trust on you. I treated you like a brother. Ji-won glanced behind him and thought to himself, this isn't the time. I need to run now. But somehow, Tae-hyung and his grave-robbing team had quickly arrived right after Ji-won beat up the landlord. Seeing them sitting there calmly, he immediately broke into a cold sweat. Then Ji-won was tied up and gagged again. They threw him to the ground as he continued to scream in vain. The man watching him with amusement said, you're too loud. He was a corpse dealer from Healthy One Company. Manager Choi. Tae-hyung smirked and replied, my apologies. You needed a fresh one, so I prepared it, but since it's still alive, it's a bit of a hassle. Manager Choi replied nonchalantly, he probably understands. Now let's talk business. Meanwhile, Ji-won was still breathing with difficulty. Tae-hyung smiled and said, yes sir. So where should I deliver the body? And by the way, I'd like to meet your superior this time. Manager Choi laughed and said, but he's very busy, so I don't know if you'll be able to meet him. Tae-hyung glanced at a member standing behind them while Manager Choi said, as for the delivery, send it to our warehouse, but meeting my superior is difficult. Then he approached and whispered into Manager Choi's ear. The director is calling. He was surprised, is that so? Manager Choi looked back at Tae-hyung and then smiled, saying, I've got some interesting news. It seems our business is about to change. Tae-hyung asked suspiciously, good news? He smiled and said no. Someone reported a grave-robbing company. That, hearing Manager Choi's heavy tone, his face immediately scrunched up. He uttered the final words, you're a spy. Right after that, his men quickly surrounded Tae-hyung. Immediately, one of them took action, throwing a brick at Tae-hyung. He hastily raised his arm to defend. The brick almost knocked him completely backward. The man then picked up an iron bar and struck Tae-hyung with it, making him fall down completely. Manager Choi observed and then smirked. "First the police and now a spy, huh?" He shouted, "Catch him." And immediately his men ran forward with weapons drawn, ready to fight. In just a second, Tae-hyung shot back up. Frowning with tension as he looked up, he immediately grabbed his tie and yanked it to the side. Activating his tech-enhanced speed, Tae-hyung moved like lightning to one man's side. The man had no time to defend and was pummeled by Tae-hyung. He looked behind him. They were raising iron pipes and charging at Tae-hyung, shouting "bastard." He spun around and landed a straight punch into one man's mouth. This knocked all his teeth out and made him fall down. Behind Tae-hyung, another man took a swing with a baseball bat at his head and screamed, "Die." Tae-hyung spun around behind him with a punch that sent him flying far away. His eyes suddenly glowed, and then in just a few short seconds, Tae-hyung had unleashed a flurry of punches. This caused all of them to be beaten to a pulp at once. They had no time to block or counterattack and fell back easily. Tae-hyung zipped past them, but his attack path was incredibly complex and agile. Watching the director fight with Manager Choi's men, Ji-won wondered what's happening. A spy. Him. Tae-hyung was moving with extreme agility, attacking in all directions. Seeing his masterful skills, Manager Choi was on the edge of his seat. He gawked. What? A person can move like that? He pointed at Ji-won and ordered one of his subordinates. "I'm going to call for more men. You clean this place up." He immediately replied, "Yes, sir." He slowly approached Ji-won as he was trying to struggle and scream in vain. Ji-won screamed in his mind, "Damn it, no. Why are you dragging me along when you're trying to escape? Stop. Don't come here." Manager Choi's subordinate raised a knife and slowly approached him menacingly. But surprisingly, it was Tae-hyung who dashed forward and pushed the man aside, saving Ji-won's life. He let out a sigh of relief with a tense, wrinkled face. Behind Tae-hyung, the bodies of Manager Choi's men were scattered about, leaving only the two of them in the room. He was breathing heavily, his face smeared with dirty blood. Tae-hyung then grabbed the tape on his mouth and pulled it off. "Are you okay?" Ji-won mumbled in pain as his lips were stuck to the tape. He then cursed loudly, "Damn it. Who are you? You think this situation is okay?" Tae-hyung bent down to untie Ji-won and explained, "Sorry for dragging you into this. I needed bait for them." He slowly stood up, rubbing his wrists, and cursed, "Son of a bitch, that's your problem. I just got a part-time job. What did I get involved in?" Tae-hyung replied, "Seriously, I'm sorry, I will take responsibility." Hearing that Ji-won was surprised responsibility, he suddenly bent down and took off his pants, then said, "Take this." Seeing the sensitive situation, Ji-won awkwardly yelled, "What are you doing?" Tae-hyung said, "Don't get any weird ideas." He finally took off his clothes and gave them to Ji-won, saying, "This is a special suit from my organization. It's bulletproof and knife-proof. That's just the basics. Depending on your sync rate, you can enhance your body or use special abilities. My own abilities are also thanks to this suit. You put it on and run." Hearing this, he was also very surprised. Ji-won took it and examined it, then wondered, "So your speed is thanks to this?" Tae-hyung replied, "Yes, thanks to that suit." He asked again if I wear it. "What about you?" He insisted, "As I said, I will take responsibility." Hearing that, he fell silent in thought. Ji-won looked at the suit he was holding and contemplated. Finally, he took off his clothes and put on the suit, saying, "Fine, I'll run and call the police. You hide here." Ji-won turned and ran from the place. Tae-hyung stood there, with his naked body, watching his back in silence. Finally, he bent down and picked up Ji-won's shirt. He muttered to himself, "Thanks for your kindness. But I'm truly sorry. The reason I gave you the suit was to use you as bait." Tae-hyung slowly put on the shirt, then said to himself, "You get it now, right? Release the bait and activate the suit." He touched his earring, which was a hidden communication device. Tae-hyung instructed to buy as much time as possible. In his mind, he thought, "I'm too tired. I can't fight. I need to get out of here first." On the other end of the line, two staff members were monitoring the cameras. She replied, "Yes, Captain. I've summoned a nearby agent." At this time, Ji-won ran out of breath outside that room. He still thought he had escaped, not knowing he had been tricked by Tae-hyung again. Suddenly, Ji-won was blocked by a group of people. One of them shouted, "Found him, the guy in the suit with long hair. Get him. My cover's blown. I have to run." But why can't I run any faster? But in the end, Ji-won just grimaced, as behind him was another group blocking his way. "Found him, the guy in the suit over there." He cursed again, "Damn it." Ji-won looked back and forth trying to find an escape route, but he was completely surrounded. Will Ji-won survive? Smash the like button and subscribe to Miss Manhwa to find out. Ji-won frantically thought to himself, "There's no way out. Why are they all looking for a guy in a suit with long hair?" Ji-won pondered for a moment, and then froze. He looked down at the suit he was wearing. Could it be? Ji-won finally realized the situation he was in. He remembered that Tae-hyung himself had given him this suit to be bait. It's clear his intentions were not friendly at all. Ji-won cursed that bastard, using me as bait again. He stood there in confusion and yelled out loud, "Damn it." Inside Tae-hyung's special task force control room, the blonde female employee asked, "But Captain, what's the difference if he activates the suit? If a normal untrained person wears the suit, their sync rate is probably less than 10%. But at least it reduces the danger." She turned and asked, "But have you activated the suit yet?" The other person replied, "Yes ma'am, just did." Suddenly there was a loud noise from the screen in front of them. They all looked up. The suit management screen suddenly had a strange change, making them all gasp. On Ji-won's side, he was being mercilessly punched in the face without resisting. One person punched, then another. Another guy kicked his knee, making Ji-won endure the pain. He looked up. A large guy in a red shirt slowly approached. In his hand, he held a large iron baseball bat. He raised his hands in surrender and stuttered, "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding here." The guy didn't listen and waved him over. "What misunderstanding? You're too noisy. Get over here." He threatened him repeatedly with the baseball bat. "Don't try to weasel your way out. Don't you understand the situation?" He gritted his teeth and cursed in his mind as he was cornered. "Damn it, what do I do? I'm going to die like this." The guy ran forward, raising the bat high, and yelled, "Get over here." Ji-won immediately raised his forearms to defend. He widened his eyes in fear and cursed under his breath, "Damn it." In the control room, both employees observed the information panel with surprise. On the position of the eyes of the figure on the screen, they gradually began to glow unusually, and then the system slowly began to synchronize with the suit below. The black-haired female employee asked loudly, "What is this?" The suit on the screen suddenly lit up. The system announced detecting new user. Sync rate increasing from 10% to 20%, up to 40%. His eyes also began to glow. Ji-won was surprised to feel an extraordinary power forming within the suit. The system continued to load 80%, 98%. He wondered, The screen then displayed a long string of nines. The system announced limit exceeded. Brainwave connection 99.999999999. Visual nerve sync open. Muscle enhancement open. The black-haired female employee just stood there observing and stuttered. "Oh my god, what is this nonsense?" A sync rate like this. Ji-won's pupils gradually lit up and reflected the image of the man in red, charging with his bat. A frantic power surged through him. "I've become a monster." Ji-won reacted quickly, ducking to avoid the man's swing. His eyes widened in disbelief. I dodged it." The man in red raised his bat again and yelled, "You bastard." Ji-won's eyes immediately widened with his pupils glowing with technology. From his perspective, he could see the man's every move slow down, as if in a slow-motion film. He's moving so slow. He immediately dodged behind him as he swung the bat for the third time. Ji-won grasped how the power worked. He curled his lip triumphantly. He slowly began to laugh out loud, haha. Then Ji-won tensed his forearm, his fingers curling into a fist as his body radiated with power. The man in red's eyes widened in surprise as he turned. Before he could defend himself, he was hit with a straight punch to the face. The man in red flew back and crashed into his accomplices, causing those nearby to be knocked over and fall backward. He then continued to fly backward with his face deformed from the blow, drool and blood flying uncontrollably. The man in red finally crashed into the pickup truck's containers behind them. Everyone watched in awe. After the dust slowly settled, his distorted figure became clearer. The man in red lay there unconscious. They stared dumbfounded at their comrade, stammering, What was that?" The system once again announced adjusting size to fit user's body. The suit suddenly resized to fit his shoulders, sizing complete. Then the suit's pant legs also tightened. And finally, the suit had perfectly fitted Ji-won's physique. The system announced adjustment complete. The two female employees in the control room were still observing the screen. The blonde employee wondered, "The sync rate is 99%. So what happens now?" The other employee frowned and replied, "In history, there has only been one person to reach over 99% sync. Do you know what that person was considered?" At that moment, Ji-won laughed maniacally as his power broke through its limits. That person was a strategic weapon. The remaining men immediately charged at Ji-won as one of them yelled, "Kill him." But he still stood there calmly. Then Ji-won pushed off his toes and leaped up. In other words, on a national scale, he still kept his smile as he leaped up high and raised his leg. A power on par with an atomic bomb. On Ji-won's side, after recognizing its new master, the system announced adjustment complete. He smiled with satisfaction as he felt this new power. The men surrounding him stared in disbelief. "What is this?" Then one of them yelled, "Kill him." and the rest immediately charged at Ji-won. He gave a contemptuous smile, then turned to look at one of them. As he threw a punch at him, he immediately ducked down, dodging as easily as pie. Ji-won looked at the attacker's fist. To him, his movements were no different from a turtle's. The special suit originated in World War II. Scientists worldwide wanted to develop equipment that could both remain undetected by the enemy and grant superhuman abilities. Ji-won supported his body with one hand and then swung both legs up to kick him hard in the face. The result was this special suit, an ultra-thin quantum computer that reads brainwaves and a nanomachine that mimics the user's movements, granting a variety of abilities. He pushed off his toes and shot forward again. After the war, it became an international espionage tool. This technology has remained a top military secret for decades. Ji-won shot forward quickly to one of them. The man realized he was being targeted and cursed worriedly. Shit. The sync rate for a first-time wearer is usually only around 10%, but it can increase. As Ji-won charged forward, he smiled with satisfaction and wondered, "What's this? What's really happening?" In his eyes, the world around him seemed to be in slow motion. He could see their next moves. A young man wearing the suit for the first time has achieved an unbelievably high sync rate. At that moment, with just a single dash, he had taken down all the men blocking his path. Ji-won glanced to the side while thinking, "I don't know if I'm possessed or what, but I'll just go all out." Every movement was like in slow motion. The next guy who was about to punch him. Similarly, his movements were unbelievably slow, until his fist was just a few centimeters from his face. Ji-won thought to himself, "Are they slowing down? No. He then leaned to the side to smoothly dodge the punch and circle behind him, and unleashed an ultra-fast punch into his stomach, sending the man hanging in the air. "I'm faster," he whispered. Ji-won let out an amused laugh, then pushed off his toes and leaped up, and unleashed a flurry of subsequent blows in a single small motion, defeating all the enemies surrounding him. Meanwhile, back in the room where Tae-hyung was, he was still adjusting his clothes and looking around. He glanced over at the main door, feeling a little guilty. Tae-hyung thought to himself, "Sorry for using you as bait, I'll come back and save you." But suddenly, from the other end of the comms, the control room staff urgently called, "Captain, there's a problem." Tae-hyung asked, "What is it?" Jang replied, "The friend you gave the suit to, and used as bait, has exceeded the synchronization limit." Hearing something so absurd, he was immediately wide-eyed with shock. "What?" Tae-hyung gritted his teeth and rushed off to find Ji-won. "Damn it." He pressed his earring and replied, "Can you switch to off mode?" Jang replied, "Impossible. The AI has forced an unlock." Hearing that, his face immediately contorted with tension. "Damn it." Jang continued, "At this rate, the user's consciousness could collapse, and then it'll be out of control." Outside, Tae-hyung was running everywhere looking for Ji-won. In his mind, he cursed, "Damn it, is this a joke? A 99% sync rate." He ran as fast as he could with a worried expression. "I have to stop him if I let this go on. Another monster like him will be born." When he saw his figure, Tae-hyung stopped. Before him, Ji-won stood firmly. Beneath his feet were the bodies of Manager Choi's men. Tae-hyung seemed a little surprised. He took in the brutal scene below. He did all this. He then immediately became worried and wondered, could it be his consciousness has already collapsed? But Ji-won suddenly turned around, his expression completely blank as he asked, "Huh, what's up? You're here. I thought you were tricking me." Seeing him still conscious and remembering what happened before, Tae-hyung was thrown from one surprise to another. You're okay." Ji-won then opened his jacket and looked at it, praising it. "Whoa, this thing is amazing. It's like a superpower." Tae-hyung suddenly asked, "Are you okay?" Hearing that, he wondered, He then smiled and answered frankly, "Are you asking if I'm hurt?" "Thanks to the suit, I'm fine." Hearing his answer, he was silent for a moment. Then he apologized. "I didn't mean to, but I'm sorry." Ji-won seemed to not hold a grudge. "It's okay, it was a cool experience." Tae-hyung requested, "That's enough for today. You should take off the suit." Hearing him suddenly change his mind like that, he wondered, "What are you talking about? We're not completely out of here yet until..." But suddenly Tae-hyung made a move while he was distracted. He ducked down and raised his fist before Ji-won could react. His other hand lingered on his neck as Ji-won was focused on his fist. Tae-hyung took a step back and flipped him over with just one hand. Instantly, even though Ji-won was wearing the suit, he couldn't avoid this dizzying spin. He scowled in confusion. What? Without the suit, how is he this strong? Right after that, Ji-won fell to the ground. He gritted his teeth and opened his eyes. Cough, what the hell? Tae-hyung had immediately grabbed his collar. His expression suddenly became serious. He glared at him like a threat. He then repeated his earlier request, "Take it off." Ji-won lay there with his eyes wide open in surprise. Finally, he just gave a cheerful smile and agreed all right. A while later, the cleanup crew arrived. They contacted headquarters via comms. While Ji-won was sitting on the side, At that time, Ji-won was looking at his own two hands. The memory of the one versus many battle immediately flooded back to him. Ji-won looked at his hands in disbelief that he had done that. He thought to himself, it's like a dream. Suddenly 2 girls approached him and asked, "Are you okay?" Ji-won looked up. He was surprised to see 2 strange women approach. The blonde female employee smiled and waved. Hello, her name was Hong Soo-ah. The black-haired female employee, also known as Jong, spoke up, "You must be in shock after that bizarre experience, so your sense of reality will be diminished." Soo-ah then said, "We should probably tell him, huh, senior?" She immediately replied, "Ah, that's right." She then revealed some important things to him. Kim Ji-won, you will have to stay here for a while because our work is classified. Jong noticed his worried expression and added, "But you will be compensated 10 million won at headquarters." He then had a satisfied look on his face and said to himself, "Awesome, more money for coins." He glanced over at Tae-hyung and noticed he was slowly approaching Manager Choi and wondered. Ji-won looked closely at Manager Choi's face and immediately recognized him. "That's the corpse dealer from before, huh? So he finally got caught." Jong came closer and asked, "Do you want to see a lie detector?" He asked back in surprise, "Huh?" Suddenly, Tae-hyung delivered a kick to the manager and continued with a series of kicks, making the manager cover himself with his forearms. Seeing Tae-hyung's strange torture methods, he had a big question mark in his head. Ji-won turned and wondered, what is he doing? Jong replied, "Ah, it's a kind of psychological warfare." He then looked back at Tae-hyung and wondered, but what is he trying to interrogate him for? Suddenly Soo-ah came closer and added, "It's not over yet." He turned to her. "Huh." She smiled and said his organization has all been caught. But now we have to catch even worse people. The captain, posing as a corpse dealer, was to catch the others. While Soo-ah was talking, Manager Choi's face was all bruised. Ji-won was a bit curious hearing her explanation. "Others," she explained, "there are people who do illegal drug testing on humans. Catching them is our goal." Jung suddenly came over and said, "Hong Soo-ah, stop spouting nonsense. This is classified information." Suddenly a strange voice asked, "Classified what?" Hearing that, she immediately turned in surprise. Tae-hyung had finally gotten a confession out of Manager Choi. He approached them while wiping his hands and said, "He almost died, so he has a right to know." The 4 of them looked at each other in silence for a moment. Then Jong spoke up, "Take a break for a bit." "What do you want to know?" Tae-hyung spoke up for him, "Tell him everything. He doesn't know anything." Hearing him speak for him, Ji-won just looked confused. "Huh? But I heard they gave it to some kindergarten bus drivers. They probably delivered it multiple times to avoid getting caught." Soo-ah smiled and added, "Finding them would take a few webtoon chapters." She asked, "But why a kindergarten bus?" "There are bigger vehicles." Ji-won said, "It's probably to avoid inspection. Kindergarten buses have an image of not doing anything wrong." Hearing that, Soo-ah immediately clapped and praised him. "Whoa, you're really smart." Ji-won smiled and scratched his head. "Haha, I know a few guys like that. Stupid idiots with syringe tattoos." Manager Choi behind Tae-hyung suddenly spoke up with tears in his eyes. "Ah, that's right, a syringe." He confessed those guys have syringe tattoos too. Hearing that, Ji-won was very confused. "Huh?" Then Tae-hyung threw a briefcase at him and said, "Take this." Ji-won caught the briefcase with a bewildered expression. Jong came over and asked, "Is this okay?" "The sync rate," he replied. "He looked fine earlier." "It's okay." At that moment, Ji-won pulled a suit jacket out from the briefcase Tae-hyung had given him. He wondered, "Am I supposed to wear this?" Without any further explanation, Tae-hyung suddenly offered a price 50,000 won per hour. But for a guy like Ji-won, bribery was the easiest method. He immediately followed him. "Yes sir, I'm here." One of them demanded to know, "Who are you?" Seeing the 2 of them being arrogant and not answering, they gritted their teeth and cursed. Damn it, this whole time. Without warning, the 2 of them immediately charged at them, and after a thorough beatdown, they finally surrendered. One of them confessed, "We were just delivering it, sir," because they said it's hard to do it themselves. Ji-won heard this and pondered. "The ant's nest. Is it the Insadong ant's nest?" He looked at him and said, "Lead the way." Ji-won was confused. "Huh?" Without any further explanation, he again offered a price, 100,000 won. Immediately after they had defeated the Insadong ant's nest, after he finished leading the way, one of them confessed, "We were just delivering it, sir." Tae-hyung asked, "So who were you delivering to?" The man replied, "To the laundromat, sir." Ji-won then smirked. "Laundromat, huh?" Without saying anything, Tae-hyung quickly understood his meaning and offered a price, 200,000 won. And after that, the laundromat was also taken care of by the 2 of them. They were kneeling and saying, "We were just delivering." That guy was immediately knocked backward. A while later, the 2 of them had finally arrived at their destination. Tae-hyung asked, "Have a few chapters passed already?" He smiled and looked up, and now, "Is this the final boss?" In front of them was another warehouse. the location that the laundromat thugs had pointed out. At that moment, Zhang was observing the monitor and explaining, an illegal pharmaceutical company. Sua asked, is the pharmaceutical company a large corporation? Zhang replied, there are many small and medium-sized companies. This size is just a small company. Finally, Tae-hyung spoke up to correct them. You're on speaker. The two of them immediately returned to their positions. He looked over at Ji-won in silence. He then asked, but how do you know these places? He replied calmly, just by chance. Tae-hyung observed his calm demeanor and thought to himself, this guy seems competent. He ordered, let's go. He immediately grabbed the warehouse door and replied, yes sir. Ji-won slowly opened the door. They looked inside. In front of them were dozens of thugs already waiting. They were all waiting in front of the warehouse door. Seeing their large numbers, Ji-won and Tae-hyung were a bit surprised. He gritted his teeth and wondered, damn it, how many of them are there? One of them stepped forward and asked in a loud voice, what's this? You're not the police here for a transaction. Tae-hyung still maintained his cold expression. The man slowly leaned in close to Tae-hyung, but his expression didn't waver. Without answering him, he immediately slapped the man across the face. Not stopping there, Tae-hyung grabbed the man's face and slammed it hard onto the ground in front of a surprised Ji-won. The rest of them saw this, and they immediately gritted their teeth and frowned. Tae-hyung looked up with a sharp, cold gaze. They stood there still silently looking at the two of them. With a sudden voice kill, they all charged forward at once, with their fists raised towards the two of them. But Tae-hyung wasn't scared at all. He immediately grabbed his tie and yanked it to the side. He looked back at Ji-won and said, hey, you should activate your suit too. He was startled and wondered, huh? In front of the two of them, they were charging wildly. While Tae-hyung's body was radiating a murderous aura, the two of them stood there preparing for the upcoming battle. There are two suits here, Ji-won muttered. Tae-hyung looked back and said, you should activate your suit too. But unexpectedly, when he looked again, he couldn't see Ji-won anywhere. Looking out the warehouse door, Tae-hyung saw Ji-won running for his life. Tae-hyung gritted his teeth, not knowing what else to do. That guy. Behind him, a thug had jumped up and raised a pipe, preparing to bring it down on Tae-hyung's head. He quickly ducked down, avoiding the attack. Tae-hyung thought to himself, right, he's just a normal person. It's been a while since I've worked in a pair, so I was mistaken. I've always been alone. Tae-hyung then threw a punch into that man's face. He frowned. Let me show you. The true power of the suit. Tae-hyung charged at the rest of them. They shouted, curses this bastard. He accelerated and dashed towards them and activated the suit, unlocking his awakened ability. Tae-hyung's eyes glowed. With his light-speed ultimate technique, with just a single dash, Tae-hyung had beaten all the men in front of him to a pulp. Tae-hyung charged at one of them while still holding his fist. The man saw him continuing to raise his fist towards him and backed away in panic. Right after that, he punched him in the face before the man could defend himself. Another man from behind Tae-hyung charged at him, raising an iron pipe and yelling shit. He immediately spun around in just a second. Tae-hyung's eyes glowed again. With just a duck, Tae-hyung's attack had concluded in an instant. All the men who wanted to charge at him were defeated. Tae-hyung swung his arm again. All the men in front of him were immediately hit with a punch to the face and chest. Tae-hyung charged at the men on the other side. They were frozen in place, seeing him move so fast. With just one punch, all of them were sent flying into the air with their faces bruised. They fell to the ground and looked up at Tae-hyung with terrified eyes. Currently, there were only two of them left. All the others were either dead or unconscious. Tae-hyung slowly looked back. The two of them could only tremble and wait for his next move without getting up. He looked at them and asked, where is he? Your boss. In a seemingly luxurious room, a man was holding a phone and playing a game, his fingers tapping continuously. But when he lost, he cursed. Ah, damn it. That man in the expensive suit was the director of Galsan Pharmaceutical Company, Gil Yong-sam. After losing, he sat up and complained to his subordinates in front of him. Damn it, I lost again. There was a man in white kneeling before Yong-sam. He took out his anger on him, kicking him in the stomach and cursing, damn it, I keep losing. The man in white was kicked to the floor, but Yong-sam didn't stop kicking him repeatedly, cursing even more. Lost. Lost again. Lost again. The man in white sat up trembling and hugged Yong-sam's leg, shaking and saying, save. Save me. He continued to curse. What's there to save if you lost, damn it? I just needed to hold on for one more minute, but I lost. Yong-sam looked down at the man clutching his leg, his face scheming. He then looked at his subordinate and asked, what experiment number is this? Someone replied, the fourth, sir. His subordinate said, 3 have already died, sir. Behind them were the bodies of those Yong-sam had taken his anger out on and killed. The man in white became even more terrified. He knelt at his feet and clasped his hands, begging, save me. Save me. But Yong-sam showed no mercy. He continued to slap the man's head and cursed, you're not going to die, you idiot. You're not a character in a game. The man looked up again and clasped his hands, begging for mercy. Please, please, Young Sam said, the dosage has been somewhat determined. You won't die this time. And even if you do, I've already made an agreement with Manager Choi to get another one. With that thought, he immediately ordered drag him away. One of them immediately replied, yes, sir. Hearing this, the man in white looked over in panic. As he was being dragged away, he could only shout pleas for mercy. Please, but just then another subordinate opened the door, urgently reporting, sir, there's a big problem. An intruder. Hearing that, Young Sam wondered, what intruder? What about my men? He answered fearfully, all of them. As soon as he finished his sentence, Tae-hyung appeared behind him, kicking him forward. The man was kicked against the wall of the room to the surprise of everyone inside. Tae-hyung looked at them with a cold gaze. One of them stepped forward and stuttered, what's going on? Who? As soon as he finished his sentence, he noticed Tae-hyung rushing towards him. He mercilessly slammed his palm into his face. Another man holding a knife ran forward, cursing bastard. Tae-hyung glanced over. He immediately hit his forearm, making the knife in his hand fall out. He then slapped his face, making him fall backward. Tae-hyung then spun around and kicked him hard in the chest, quickly defeating him without any chance of resistance. Seeing Tae-hyung easily take down his men, Young Sam's eyes widened in surprise. He watched him handle the situation so neatly and wondered, what is that speed? 3 of his men charged at him, but Tae-hyung easily took care of all of them at once. Young Sam quickly realized the suit he was wearing was emitting a powerful energy. Could it be the suit? Meanwhile, Tae-hyung continued to attack the rest. He scowled, damn it, where did that guy come from? I can't handle him. Right after that, Young Sam immediately activated his own suit. But his thoughts were on running away. I have to run. He rushed behind Tae-hyung and pushed him forward, yelling, hey you dog. Tae-hyung was immediately pushed far away. He rolled a few times on the floor in pain. He finally slammed his back against the wall behind him, his face contorted in pain. But Tae-hyung didn't stay down and immediately got back up. He looked up with his eyes and saw Young Sam running away quickly. A massive amount of power surrounded his suit as he moved. Young Sam looked back at him for a moment, then turned to leave with a trail of energy behind him. He immediately realized what that was. Could it be the raw power of the suit? He has a suit too, I have to catch him. With that thought, Tae-hyung stood up straight, but at that moment he could only stand up by leaning on the nearby wall. Tae-hyung was breathing heavily with exhaustion. Damn it. I overdid it. He immediately spoke into the control room. A guy in a suit has appeared. We have to catch him. Jong told him to rest. I'll send another agent, you need to rest now. Tae-hyung was exhaustedly kneeling on the ground, his hands on the floor as he panted heavily. Damn it. That Kim Ji-won guy ran off. He scowled. He then ordered track his location. Outside, Ji-won was running as fast as he could away from that place. He had started to breathe heavily. As Ji-won ran, he thought to himself, damn it. Activate the suit, my ass. Making me fight a whole mob like that. But thinking it over, Ji-won was silent for a moment. He then stopped and looked back, wondering if he was okay. I probably won't get paid for running like this, he panted. As he looked towards the warehouse, Ji-won gritted his teeth and wondered, damn it. Do I have to go back? But suddenly his earpiece connected, and Jong's urgent voice was heard. Kim Ji-won. Mr. Kim Ji-won. He was startled. Ah, right, my earpiece. She asked worriedly, did you run off, Mr. Kim Ji-won? He just laughed it off and made an excuse. Ran off, that's just a tactic. Jong got angry and yelled, shut up and get to the captain's location. Anyway, the captain has taken care of everything, so it's not dangerous. She said yes, so go find him and protect him until he recovers. If you want to get paid. But suddenly something made Ji-won freeze again. Who? He asked them, hey you guys. The 2 Jongs were looking at the camera with confusion. Some guy is coming. Ji-won asked as he saw Young Sam running towards him. As he ran, he gritted his teeth, remembering the suit Tae-hyung was wearing. He thought to himself, damn it. What is he? No, that's not the problem. I have to run as far as possible. But when he saw the figure of a man standing right in his path, he stopped. Ji-won stood right in front of him, looking completely unfazed, realizing he was also wearing a similar suit. Young Sam gritted his teeth and thought, a suit? Did these guys prepare a backup force too? He then swung his fist and yelled, get out of the way. While Ji-won still didn't understand what the hell was going on, he took a full punch to the chest. Ji-won was immediately pushed backward, his butt dragging painfully on the ground. He gritted his teeth and looked at Young Sam, wondering, what the hell? Why so sudden? But when he saw the suit the guy was wearing suddenly emit power, Ji-won was able to recognize what it was. Could this be the suit? He slowly stood up while Young Sam was gradually approaching. He wondered and asked the control room, hey, what should I do? The man once again charged forward and kicked towards his head. Yelling D, Ji-won quickly ducked down and barely avoided his kick. Yong-sam kicked straight into the iron pillar behind him. Slowly, cracks began to appear on the pillar, and then it crashed down as the spot he kicked shattered into pieces. His terrifying power made him cautious, wondering what. On the other end, Jong nervously told him to retreat first, but once again Yong-sam raised his fist, about to swing at him with a loud curse. Get lost, damn you. He punched down hard where Ji-won was sitting. He immediately pulled his legs back, avoiding the punch. Seeing Yong-sam continuously attacking him, he gritted his teeth and thought, I'm done for. How am I supposed to run now? Not giving him any time to counterattack Yong. Sam suddenly charged forward again wildly. Ji-won could only curse in his mind, damn it. I can't even react in time. He remembered a previous conversation with Jong. The suit can create a unique activation mechanism for each person. In the present, he immediately unfastened a button on his shirt, and energy slowly began to radiate. Energy flashed all over Ji-won's body. He gritted his teeth. Damn it, I have a suit too. Ji-won charged forward and raised his fist to proactively attack Yong-sam. Ji-won leaped forward, swinging his fist at Yong-sam as the man was also charging at him. He shouted, I have a suit too. His eyes widened, and his power immediately erupted. Right before his eyes, all of Yong-sam's movements also became slow motion. He saw the man throwing a punch at him. Ji-won immediately ducked down and nimbly dodged the man's punch. He looked up and threw out his fist. Shouting D, he immediately punched Yong-sam in the stomach before the man could even defend himself. That punch not only didn't harm the man, but on the contrary, it enraged Yong-sam to the point of madness. Ji-won looked up with a slightly worried expression when he saw the man's strange reaction. Right after that, Yong-sam punched him in the head in anger. Yelling this guy, Ji-won had no time to dodge and took the full force of the punch. Ji-won clutched his head, his mind reeling from the heavy blow. As Ji-won was dazed and kneeling at Yong-sam's feet, the man pulled his leg back, intending to kick him, and yelled again, die. Ji-won understood, and he immediately blocked with both forearms. The man's kick met his forearms. Ji-won's defense was no match for Yong-sam's kicking power. He easily knocked him back. He slowly sat up in pain, his breathing erratic. Ji-won frowned and thought to himself, damn it, what kind of power is that? No, I have to run. Fighting that guy is foolish. While he was thinking, Yong-sam was charging wildly at him again. He gritted his teeth and thought, even though I've activated the suit if I run this fast, but when Ji-won tried to stand up straight, his left knee wouldn't move anymore. This made him freeze and look down worriedly. He muttered to himself, damn it, I'm injured. I can't run like this. But Ji-won then saw Yong-sam's fist hovering in front of him, so I have to fight this guy. Can Ji-won win? Smash that like button and subscribe to Miss Manhwa to find out. Ji-won was sweating profusely with fear. The man once again turned skillfully and raised his leg, and kicked hard at Ji-won. He was once again lucky to have dodged to the side, avoiding the devastating kick. He gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath, damn it. The man continued to throw a barrage of punches at Ji-won's face. He was just as stubborn and continuously leaned away to avoid the blows. What do? I can't keep dodging forever. In the end, I still have to take down that monster. As he thought that Yong-sam was throwing another punch, he aimed for his head and Ji-won nimbly ducked down. There's only one way, counterattack. He immediately threw a decisive punch at the man's face, because he's also just human. As soon as he finished that thought, Yong-sam immediately recovered from the short stun, feeling disrespected by being hit in the face. The man threw another arrogant blow. Ji-won focused on dodging the attack. Then I'll just keep attacking. Yong-sam shouted, you dog. At that moment, he threw an uppercut from under his chin. I will take him down. In that same thought, Yong-sam's fist swung out and hit him hard on the jaw. This sent Ji-won flying backward a great distance, his body not touching the ground but suspended in midair. He gritted his teeth in pain, blood and saliva spewing from his mouth. Ji-won's body landed with a series of hard tumbles toward the wall. Yong-sam looked on, his body still radiating with energy. In his mind, he thought, damn it. I thought it would be easy, so I was just going to kill him quickly and run. Why is he so stubborn? When he looked at Ji-won, he saw him slowly getting up. Ji-won, with a mouthful of blood and labored breathing. His eyes were still glued to him. Yong-sam charged forward wildly and raised his fist, surprising even Ji-won. He threw a powerful punch, and Ji-won reacted in time. He jumped back. As he retreated, his face remained tense. Ji-won was relieved for a moment and thought, damn, it almost died. No. If I didn't react quickly, I would be dead for sure. I survived thanks to the suit, so what do I do now? No matter how many times I hit, it's not enough. I can't dodge every blow, but if I get hit once, I'm done for. Yong-sam gritted his teeth as he continued to attack. While Ji-won was forming a plan in his head, I need one decisive blow, but how am I supposed to suddenly get destructive power? As he finished that thought, he suddenly stopped dodging. The power of technology suddenly erupted within Ji-won's pupils. Even he was surprised by this sudden activation. At that moment, from Ji-won's perspective, he could not only slow down Yong-sam's actions, but also see strange glowing dots on his body. Ji-won looked at the white dots and wondered, what are those? I didn't see them when we fought before. Can only people wearing the suits see them? He thought, and continued to dodge Yong-sam's attacks. At that moment, Ji-won looked down at his own body. He was immediately surprised. Me too. He looked down at his forearm where glowing dots and threads of energy appeared. Ji-won's eyes widened, and he decided to observe more closely. In the palm of Ji-won's hand, the threads were actually simulating the energy flowing through his own blood vessels. Ji-won looked at the energy flow and came up with a hypothesis. The suit grants superhuman powers. The energy flow I see is probably the mechanism that creates that power. If I can control this energy flow, then I might be able to unleash the same power as that guy. At that moment, Yong-sam went all out and charged forward with his fist raised high and brought it down with great force. The dust below was churned up. Ji-won quickly retreated. He gritted his teeth and moved toward the man. Anyway, there's no other way now. I just have to try it. Yong-sam at that moment threw another punch. Ji-won observed closely. He didn't make a move but said to himself, focus, focus. In his pupils, a strange flash of light suddenly appeared. Ji-won could feel his energy rapidly transforming. The energy flow in his body was changing to match that guy's. His eyes widened, and the energy in his body erupted even more powerfully. Ji-won rejoiced inside. Yes, yes. Right after he thought that the man's fist swung out and hit him in the face, Ji-won was immediately sent flying backward by the punch. But his face hadn't taken any damage from the punch. Ji-won was still conscious and landed firmly on his feet. Yong-sam's eyes widened in surprise at the situation. At that moment, Ji-won was completely uninjured. He was even very alert. Seeing him stand so firmly, the man wondered, how did he endure that? Alright, he muttered. As Yong-sam was standing there, confused what, Ji-won had immediately rushed close to him. He spoke while preparing to attack. What? Yong-sam slowly looked down. At that moment, Ji-won was gathering power in his fist before unleashing it. He smirked triumphantly. From now on, it's my turn, you bastard. Ji-won then landed a powerful punch into Yong-sam's stomach, making him double over in pain. His face was drenched in sweat from the pain. His mouth agape in shock. Ji-won looked back at his own powerful hand. He smiled and thought, good. My power increased and my speed is slower, but with this, even after taking such a painful blow, Yong-sam still didn't stop fighting. He raised his hand again and yelled, don't joke around. That being said, I don't have to take the hit. Right now, switch to speed mode to avoid it. His eyes once again glowed with a familiar blue color, but when the man threw his punch, Ji-won's body was frozen and couldn't move, making him take the full force of it. Ji-won slid back from the blow. He coughed up blood in pain and thought worriedly, damn it, the energy flow is disrupted. Switching in a flash is harder than I thought. While he was sliding back, Yong-sam immediately rushed at him. He intended to throw another punch at him. Ji-won quickly dodged to the side. He gritted his teeth and thought, I have to switch the flow faster. As soon as I dodge, I'll immediately switch to power mode. From speed mode to power mode. He stomped his foot and power slowly released. He immediately rushed forward and hit the man a few times, then somersaulted backward. But Yong-sam was able to block with his arms. The man calmly looked back and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Ji-won muttered, damn it, I'm switching too slow. Yong-sam then leaped up and raised his arm high, intending to strike back at Ji-won. He ducked down and observed the man. I have to dodge it, speed mode. When he switched to blue, he was able to easily dodge the attack that came down. Ji-won muttered, good. Faster. Yong-sam simultaneously raised his fist again, but this time he had switched to power mode quickly, seizing the opportunity and swinging his fist at the man's face first. The man was enraged at being hit, you dog, and continued his punch. Immediately after Ji-won switched to speed and easily dodged to the side, he then immediately punched the man in the stomach, constantly pushing himself in his mind faster. Even faster, Yong-sam was hit for the second time in a row, making him freeze, seizing the opportunity to land another blow. Ji-won immediately zipped to his side and ducked down, curling his hand into a fist fast, and then landed a hard punch on his ribs. Yong-sam was in so much pain he doubled over to that side fast. He still didn't stop, but continued to look at the man while preparing to attack again fast. Ji-won then unleashed a series of punches that Yong-sam couldn't seem to block. He punched his face, and then his stomach. Finally, Ji-won delivered a powerful kick to Yong-sam's back. This sent him flying far away with his mouth still agape. Blood and drool flew everywhere. He landed on his back on the road while coughing up blood. But when he looked again, Yong-sam's eyes were wide with fear. His nightmare wasn't over yet. Ji-won had jumped off a forklift and was coming down on top of him. He stared down at Yong-sam while raising his fist again. The man gritted his teeth, his anger boiling over. And finally, Yong-sam shot up quickly. Tirelessly, he leaped up at him, stubbornly curling his hands into fists. Both men lunged at each other, both with fists at the ready. Yong-sam's eyes flared with power. He poured all his energy into this punch, and so did Ji-won. He quickly gathered energy into his hand. Finally, both fists collided. The clash of their two powers erupted in a flash of light, followed by a frantic earthquake that wiped out everything around them. After the aftershock, finally, his fist reached Yong-sam's chest. The man fell back onto the already cracked ground. Yong-sam's hand was broken. His 5 fingers were mangled, and his hand was completely useless. He screamed loudly, but after the punch, Yong-sam was blown away like a leaf by his power. But that was enough to knock the soul out of Yong-sam's body. His motionless body flew far away, and slammed his back onto the ground nearby. Ji-won slowly looked up. He stared at Yong-sam and panted with exhaustion. It took Ji-won a moment to realize the man was no longer breathing. He finally let out a sigh of relief. Slumping onto the ground in a daze, Ji-won looked at his hands. The energy was slowly fading, but they wouldn't stop shaking. He stuttered with exhaustion, and finally collapsed onto the ground. Ji-won's body felt completely drained of energy. He slowly lay on his back and looked up at the sky. Ji-won stammered each word with fatigue. "Damn it, my part-time pay. The hospital bills will be more than that." His vision then slowly began to close. As Ji-won lost consciousness, the figure of a man walked over. He was none other than Tae-hyung, casually holding a pack of cigarettes. Tae-hyung knelt down and checked his pulse. He's just unconscious. Thanks to the suit, he's only slightly injured. He then glanced over, but more importantly, Tae-hyung stood before Yong-sam's motionless body and thought. A guy wearing the suit for the first time took down another suit wearer, and a brute strength type at that. Tae-hyung was silent for a moment, seemingly in thought. He then looked back at Ji-won. "I think I've found an interesting talent." Memories came flooding back. "I've had it rough. I've been poor since I was a kid. My friends used to call me that, but I hated that name, because I felt sorry for my grandma, who always tried so hard for me. Everyone has clothes that fit them. My grandma used to say that whenever I was about to go to a part-time job, maybe she was trying to tell me not to do those kinds of things. But in this cold world, I don't have many choices. When I was 13, I got a younger sibling. Ji-won's younger sibling called him brother. He smiled and replied, "Yes, Grandma." It turns out Ji-won didn't have a younger sibling. It was just his grandma with dementia, calling him brother. She had Alzheimer's. I had to work to make a living. After he had collected enough cardboard, he noticed his cart was gone. "Where's the cart?" And there were times Ji-won was wrongly accused of stealing by a swindling old man. "Mister, I found the cash, but for a 13-year-old like me, this world is so cruel." Ji-won then cursed loudly, "Damn old man," until he turned and saw a flyer on the wall. It was a job posting with the words "no age limit." Ji-won happily said, "Here it is, no age limit." A while later, he was at the office for an interview. The recruiter sat opposite him, smoking a cigarette and observing him silently. Looking at Ji-won, he thought, "Ah, damn it. Even with no age limit, it's still too risky. I guess it'll be fine, huh?" He then smiled and spoke up. "Hey kid, you want to make money, huh?" Ji-won stared at him. After agreeing to let Ji-won work for him, he got up and came over to ruffle his hair and encourage him. "Do your best. Since you're a kid, no one will suspect you. The job is very simple. You just have to deliver things." It didn't take me long to realize this wasn't a good job, but I didn't feel guilty, rather I thought it was natural, and so I existed. A while later, the rookie kid was now a grown man. Everything seemed to be going normally, until at Ji-won's house. His grandma had fallen down and her hand went limp. "I'm all alone now." His grandma's funeral took place quickly. Ji-won then looked at a card he was holding. "My grandma sometimes had lucid moments. She collapsed while collecting scrap in the middle of winter and passed away. It's all because of me." Inside the card were records of Ji-won's tuition debt. Time passed and the pain of losing my grandma faded, but her words still echoed in my head. Suddenly, he heard a voice calling from his side. "Grandma." Ji-won glanced over. It was a stranger walking down the street talking to her grandmother on the phone. "I did great on my interview." Ji-won seemed to be sensitive to the word grandma. He then turned his back and continued to walk away. While the girl was still talking, "Thanks for the suit, Grandma. See you later, hey." Ji-won thought to himself, everyone has clothes that fit them. If that's the case, then the suit that fits me is probably just this one. Suddenly, Ji-won woke up from his unconscious state. He looked up at the ceiling and silently wondered. He then sat up and looked around a bit confused. "What's this?" "This is," as Ji-won was moving, a sharp pain shot through his hip, making him clutch it. He remembered the moment before he passed out. "Ah, that's right, did I pass out?" So where is this? Suddenly a strange voice spoke up. You're awake. He flinched and looked over. It was the black-haired Jongda. She slowly approached and smiled, saying, you must be surprised. Captain Taehyung brought you here. She crossed her arms and said, it's really surprising you caught him by yourself, but I told you to run. Why did you keep fighting? Ji-won heard this and remembered trying to stand up but failing. I tried to run, but then I ended up here. My earpiece was broken so I couldn't hear. She let out a sigh of relief. But fighting alone, you were lucky. Next time, just run, okay? His eyes widened in surprise. Next time. Jong replied, yes, next time. She suddenly held a control button for the restroom window and pressed it. He looked over in confusion. From the other side of the window, a strong sunlight shone on them, making Ji-won cover his eyes from the glare. He slowly looked closer. His eyes widened in surprise and he stuttered what the— Behind Ji-won, a man's voice was heard. What moon and stars? He turned around. The person was Taehyung. He walked in and smiled, saying, welcome to White Night. Right before his eyes, a large window with the curtains already pulled to the side. Ji-won looked at the beautiful scenery, and then at Taehyung. White Night, he replied. That's right. It's a spy organization. Hearing that, he was a little surprised. What is going on? A spy organization's headquarters. Isn't this too conspicuous? White Knight. Or the White Knight. White Knight is an intelligence organization that has existed for a long time. It participates in national and corporate intelligence activities, as well as maintaining social security, known as the Maestro of the Night. Ji-won quickly asked, No. So you're asking me to apply for White Knight? Taehyung said without hesitation. That's right, you're unemployed anyway. Hearing that, he was immediately embarrassed and made an excuse. Unemployed. Have you ever heard of being a crypto trader? The black-haired Jong immediately took out a piece of paper and read it. It was Ji-won's information sheet. She said this profit is considered speculation. Ji-won realized, what? They investigated me to recruit me. An organization full of elites. So they need an errand boy. This is not a normal organization. Is this a recruitment scam? There's probably some conspiracy. Otherwise, no place would want to recruit someone like me. Suddenly, Taehyung spoke up. Kim Ji-won. Let me be frank. He looked over, listening intently. He said, concisely, I want you. Hearing such a serious statement, Ji-won was startled. He stuttered in fear, blushing and sweating profusely. Taehyung corrected him again. Don't get any weird ideas. He asked, do you know the meaning of reaching a 99% sync rate? He asked back in confusion. Jong explained, you can harness 99% of the suit's power, using less force for greater effect. He asked, so? She replied, of course, it's immense power, but there are also side effects. The power is created by the fusion of nanoparticles and the body. In reality, it's an overload. The higher the sync rate, the more pressure it puts on your body and mind. Considering previous cases, when it reaches 99%, the mind will collapse. Taehyung continued. Hearing that, he was terrified. The memory of him wearing the suit immediately came flooding back. Ji-won stuttered, collapse. Even though you reached a 99% sync rate, you were still able to maintain your consciousness. I see potential in you. If you can fully control that power, you will become the strongest agent. He immediately became suspicious. He really likes the word strongest, huh? It's just honeyed words to lure me in. He then thought it through. First of all, what reason do I have to take on such a dangerous job? And he just said simply a rookie's salary. Hearing that, Ji-won's eyes widened. Immediately after, Ji-won put on the suit, looking like a real rookie standing healthily in front of the window's sunlight, and asked, when's the recruitment? He looked behind him and asked, oh, but if I fail the test, can I go home? She said, no, you will be locked up and used as a test subject. He wondered, you've got to be kidding. Taehyung smiled and replied, don't worry, Kim Ji-won, you will definitely pass. Hearing his vague words, he could only remain silent. A while later, Taehyung took him to the recruitment center. Ji-won sat on a long sofa with other contestants. He looked over at the dozens of contestants waiting in line and thought, that Taehyung guy isn't so foolish as to give me the whole week. He just said it's a relaxed atmosphere. But this is way too serious. A while later, the recruiter finally appeared. Her first words were, hello everyone, I'm Seo Yoon-ah. He looked up in surprise. She slowly walked over, giving verbal instructions. Please fill this out, everyone. She held out a piece of paper to Ji-won. Here you go. He took it and replied, yes, thank you. Yoon-ah returned to the door. Before leaving, she smiled and waved. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Ji-won then looked back at the paper she had handed out, thinking to himself, didn't they already do a thorough background check before calling me? He looked at the other contestants and saw them observing him with worry. Damn it. They think I can pass among all these people. He ran his hands through his hair in panic. What if I quit now? No, I'll become a test subject. After racking his brain for a while, the female recruiter finally returned. She opened the door with the same friendly smile as always. Ji-won looked down at his form. The female recruiter slowly walked to the end of the sofa. I'll start collecting the forms now. He looked down at her feet and noticed a pen she had dropped. Ji-won immediately picked it up for her. Ah, you dropped your pen. The female recruiter smiled and took it. She replied, Oh, thank you. But Ji-won lingered and looked at her face again. He observed in silence, making the girl a little confused. The female recruiter smiled and touched her own face and asked, Strange, is there something on my face? Ji-won was immediately startled and apologized loudly. Ah, I'm sorry, you look a little different. I thought you were someone else, so I accidentally. Hearing what he said, she was silent for a moment. While still maintaining her smile, she immediately replied, You're very perceptive. Haha. That's right, I am someone else. The female recruiter then collected his form and said, You must be very popular with the ladies, huh? In the surveillance room, where a large screen was live streaming from the cameras, a man sitting on a sofa spoke up. Well, there's someone who noticed. He smiled and praised him. Better than I thought he'll actually pass, huh? He was the captain of Team 2, Cheon-du Wang. The man standing next to him, however, looked down on Ji-won. Thinking it was just a setup, he just got lucky. He was the captain of Team 1. Gang Ju-ha. Tae-hyung slowly appeared behind them. He spoke up a joke, huh? Not really. He smirked. All the captains here could tell the difference. Hearing that Du Wang laughed with amusement, while Ju-ha remained silent and serious, Tae-hyung then said, It was just a special kind of joke. On this side, Ji-won still didn't understand what was going on. Tae-hyung then looked at Ju-ha and said, Oh, sorry, except for one person. He immediately got angry and yelled, Hey, what do you mean by that? Suddenly a woman entered the room. She interrupted their conversation. I don't know if he'll pass, but I quite like him. It was Rin-ah from before, but now she was grabbing her own face and pulling it off like a mask. But I was still found out, huh? Underneath that mask, a beautiful woman with black hair and bright red lips appeared. Ju-ha stepped forward and said, It must have been a coincidence. While Du Wang gave her a thumbs up and praised her profusely. You look beautiful today too, Capt. She smiled and said, So is it ability or luck? Then the three of them looked up at the large screen, observing in silence. Let's just watch and see. A while later, a middle-aged examiner walked in with a piece of paper in his hand. The contestant sitting next to him spoke up. I graduated from a university of technology and served in a special unit. Then he ordered next. The contestant at the end of the row stood up and introduced himself. I studied sports science and won a medal for the national archery team. He then called out next, Kim Ji-won. He was startled and stood up answering loudly, Yes, sir. While his mind was spinning, Ji-won then answered honestly, Yes, sir. Since I was a kid, I've been working to support my sick grandmother. After she passed away, I made money doing various jobs. He then asked again, Your file doesn't mention any economic activity. What specifically did you do? Having no other choice, Ji-won stuttered, Yes. That is. He decided to tell the truth. I'm a crypto trader, sir. Ji-won bowed his head in shame, while the other contestants tried to hold back their laughter. Hearing them snicker so much, the examiner spoke up, Quiet everyone. The interview isn't over yet. He looked at Ji-won and continued to ask, So then Mr. Ji-won. Hearing him call his name again, he thought to himself, I saw this coming. Someone like me can't even afford a suit. Yet here I am at an interview like this. I've always lived in a different world from them. What was I hoping for? Everyone has clothes that fit them. But after a moment of negative thoughts, Ji-won shook them off. He slapped himself on the cheeks with both hands and sat up straight again, calming himself down. Get a grip. Don't get discouraged so easily. He looked at everyone and spoke up. Now everyone, I will ask one final question. He snapped his fingers. Immediately, the large screen behind the examiner suddenly turned on. On it were hundreds of images from surveillance cameras. He explained the images being shown are CCTV footage from a building bombing several years ago. Among them is the terrorist. Find him and explain why. Everyone's eyes widened in surprise. As they looked up, he looked around worriedly. How am I supposed to find him in a crowd like this? But suddenly someone raised their hand. He announced, I guess it's number 16, 59, and 84. He asked, Oh, reason? The contestant explained. Number 16 is carrying a shopping bag from a store that's not in the building. Number 59 is wearing thick clothes inappropriate for the current weather. Despite the emergency, their actions are too calm, which is very suspicious. And number 84 is running in the opposite direction from everyone else. Suddenly, someone else raised their hand. I guess it's number 16, 33, 1, and 7. He asked for the reason again. She explained briefly. Because they just look suspicious. He just replied, I see. Thinking to himself, they're all correct answers. They're quick. Everyone suddenly raised their hands, competing to answer. I think it's the little boy in camera number 13. He broke into a cold sweat, his mind racing. Damn it, no matter how I look, I can't figure it out. How are they guessing this? But after observing for a while, his eyes widened in realization. The examiner saw his expression of seeming to realize something and was confused. Ji-won suddenly spoke without raising his hand. Sir, I think number 16 seems suspicious. He looked at the woman holding a handbag and asked, Number 16? Huh. That's a repeat. Do you have any other reason? Ji-won immediately said yes. It's not that person, but the old woman and her grandson next to her. Hearing such a strange answer, he asked for the reason. Ji-won replied, if she were a real grandmother, she would have been holding her grandson and running. Hearing his short explanation, everyone around him laughed. What is this? Ji-won said firmly no. A grandmother would never do that. Speaking of his grandmother, he remembered his own deceased grandmother. In the surveillance room, seeing him speak with such certainty, Juha commented, although I expected it, but was I the only one who was wrong? A grandmother wouldn't do that, huh? He really is unskilled, he sneered contemptuously. He then turned to Rin-ah and asked, Captain Seo saw it too, right, this guy? But when he saw her surprised expression, he immediately lowered his voice. Captain Seo. Rin-ah spoke up, no. That's the correct answer. Hearing that he was extremely surprised, Rin-ah replied, that is indeed the terrorist, and it's also one of the ones we missed. Hearing that both of them were speechless with surprise, she continued, as you can see, the image is blurry and doesn't follow any pattern, so they weren't considered suspects. But after further investigation, they were identified as the perpetrators. Juha was immediately stunned. Du Wang became interested and observed closely, and Taehyung was quite proud. Rin-ah gave an amused smile. This is interesting. One time might be luck. But being right twice is real ability, huh? Back to test room number 2. The examiner gathered the contestants in the middle of the basketball court. While the captains quickly arrived on the upper level, Du Wang's eyes were glued to Ji-won, who was adjusting his sleeves. He smiled and said, Kim Ji-won-hu. I think he's pretty special. Juha still maintained his disdain for Ji-won, saying there are other outstanding contestants. Du Wang chuckled. Are you jealous that your favorite contestant is being overshadowed? Juha then turned his head away and continued to watch the test with a scowl of anger. He observed Ji-won and thought to himself, I don't like this guy. Then Juha's eyes were fixed on the contestant he had chosen. It was the male contestant with glasses. He was repeatedly urging impatiently, Ha, Do-gil, what are you doing? Juha then glanced at Taehyung, who was smiling smugly. Lee Taehyung, that guy is always so confident. He then asked, is this a suit test? Du Wang replied yes. The other contestants are all disciples of martial arts masters and have a lot of training experience, and this guy is just a country bumpkin. Of course his luck has run out this time. Taehyung spoke up. Are you sure? He was surprised and asked, what is it now, Taehyung? You're so confident. Taehyung put a cigarette in his mouth and lit it. Still looking certain, but he replied, I don't know. Let's just wait and see. Below them, everyone had formed a serious circle. Ji-won looked at the suit he was wearing. He rubbed the fabric and thought, it's been a while since I've worn it, so it feels a little strange, but it's not bad. He then glanced at the others. At least everyone is wearing the same thing, so it's less embarrassing. Ji-won let out a sigh. He then held his head high, and his face became serious again. He encouraged himself. Don't be scared, that old man will also, or maybe not. Anyway, I just have to do well on this test. Remembering a time when his grandmother was still alive, she had said, everyone has clothes that fit them. The examiner then spoke up. Now let's begin the suit operation test. Ji-won broke out of his thoughts and looked up. He began to explain. The rules of this test are very simple. You have to press the bell that the staff member is holding. Everyone looked behind them. A man was standing and holding a bell. He continued, the time limit is 10 minutes. No method is restricted. The examiner nodded and asked, do you have any other questions? Suddenly, Dougal raised his hand high. He asked, can we take down that staff member? The man replied, if you can do it, it's fine. Ji-won was stunned hearing that. What is that guy crazy? He finally refocused. Anyway, it's a one-on-one fight. I'll just do it like last time. All my previous tests have been failures. The examiner with a stern face gave the signal. So the test begins. Ji-won slowly unbuttoned his cuff, activating the suit he was wearing. I'm confident when fighting with the suit. I will definitely show everyone my true ability. He immediately got into a ready stance with his energy erupting. Everyone's attention was immediately drawn to the person holding the bell. The examiner looked behind him. One of his staff members was pulling a large board with various weapons on display. The contestants quickly approached and reached out to take a weapon of their choice. After a while, the examiner spoke up. Now who will be the first to try? By the way, the first contestant will get extra points. The contestants all looked at each other, and it seemed no one spoke up. Yi-won wondered. No one dares to volunteer. Do-gil thought carefully. It's called extra points. But volunteering without any information is really a disadvantage. Another one was racking his brain. If I wait for the next turn, I can observe the previous contestants to come up with a strategy. Another one was just as worried. The examiner will also get tired fighting everyone. If you fail when you have the advantage, it's even more humiliating. They all had the same thought. Ji-won also thought cautiously. It's best to choose the most disadvantageous time like now to win. And you also get extra points. That's right. Taking the first hit is also good. Just as he was about to raise his hand, someone raised theirs first. He said with a clear voice, "Let me go first." The examiner quickly agreed, "Go ahead." Ji-won saw the contestant who had seized his opportunity and immediately turned with a worried expression. Damn it, I'm too late. He watched his back as he approached the bellkeeper and thought, well, I'll just keep observing. Waiting for the examiner to get tired before volunteering will be more advantageous. But suddenly, a movement made him flinch. In just a few seconds, the bellkeeper had taken down the male contestant. He was lying on the ground, completely defeated. The remaining contestants grimaced in surprise. The bellkeeper maintained a cold expression and said, "Next," Ji-won exclaimed in his mind. He took him down in just an instant. He broke into a cold sweat, a far cry from his previous confidence. This is probably going to be very exhausting. After that, the defeated contestant was immediately put on a stretcher and wheeled away. Suddenly, the contestant next to him spoke up. As expected of a current staff member, he defeated him so quickly. Do-gil looked at him and asked, "Are you planning to wait until the very end?" Ji-won was confused. What the hell? With his current confidence, he immediately stepped forward, grabbing his glasses and saying, "It makes sense. An ordinary person like you can't think of anything more than just waiting. But a real man can't just act based on calculations. When faced with difficulties, you have to charge forward and break through." He took off his glasses. Ji-won thought to himself after hearing his words, is he crazy? Do-gil stood opposite the bellkeeper and said with unwavering confidence, "Although I missed the first opportunity, I won't miss the second." The man asked, "So you'll be the second?" Without answering, Do-gil had already made his move. He immediately charged forward. He pulled out a dagger. Answering bluntly, "No." The bellkeeper also immediately drew his weapon after realizing the contestant had one. As he lunged at him, he yelled the first one. From above, the captains were watching the fierce knife fight between the bellkeeper and the contestant Ju-ha had chosen. To Du-wang, it was like a movie. He ate snacks and watched while praising. "Interesting, isn't that the guy Kang Ju-ha recommended?" Ju-ha proudly replied, "Yes, that's his strength." He shared his knowledge of Do-gil. He was a former Special Forces soldier, so his movements are very skilled. Do-gil's eyes suddenly widened, his pupils constricting with focus. His eyes were fixed on the bellkeeper's side. Do-gil suddenly changed his slashing direction, which surprised him a little. On this side, Ju-ha was still boasting about his contestant. He kept talking while looking at Tae-hyung. "I only trust those who have been verified." Tae-hyung smirked, still not feeling inferior. Ju-ha then continued, "Verified, but..." At that moment, Do-gil was suddenly knocked away by the bellkeeper. It flew into the air and spun a few times before landing. Ju-ha continued, "It seems he lacks some practical combat experience, huh?" At that moment, Do-gil reached out and caught his knife again. The man swung his knife at him, and Do-gil quickly raised his own to block it. He suddenly widened his eyes in surprise, as the bellkeeper's leg was coiling up, preparing to land a kick on Do-gil. He had no time to defend, and was suddenly kicked hard in the face by the bellkeeper. The knife in Do-gil's hand was quickly knocked away. He fell back his head in pain. Du-wang laughed with amusement. "That's it now. It's a shame about the lack of experience, huh?" In the end, just being able to stand against a current staff member is already impressive. Even though he saw him fall, Ju-ha calmly smiled and replied, "That's right. Defeating our staff is not easy." He continued, but at that moment, the knife that had spun a few times as it flew through the air. Victory isn't just about winning the fight. The knife landed right on the bell behind the bellkeeper. And finally, the hilt of the knife hit the bell, and it rang. Ju-ha triumphantly said, "I told you so." Both Rin-ah and Du-wang were stunned by the result. Ju-ha proudly continued, "I only trust those who have been verified." Do-gil sat up, he wiped the sweat from his face and gave a victorious smile. Do-gil then put his glasses back on with confidence. Seeing his brilliant strategic play, Ji-won was also impressed. "Whoa, He slowly analyzed Do-gil's every action in his strategy. Lure the opponent forward, and then take advantage of an opening to use a short knife to ring the bell. His eyes widened in shock. That's amazing. The bellkeeper looked at the lit-up bell. He was silent for a moment. He then put both knives back in his suit pocket, his face suddenly darkening. He then looked up at the contestants. His face was contorted in anger, and he asked menacingly, "Who's next?" Ji-won finally spoke up. "This time it's definitely." But before he could finish, a contestant arrogantly stepped forward. "Me?" He even pushed him to the side to take his turn. He thought smugly, "I have a template now, so there's no need to wait." The contestant looked at Do-gil, who was getting up to leave, and thought it's true, following his method will make it easier to ring the bell. He then charged straight at the bellkeeper after activating his suit, thinking desperately, if I repeat it, he'll be on to me. But this time, his power suddenly increased, as if the difficulty had been raised. The other contestant was instantly defeated by the bellkeeper in just a single motion. His face contorted in pain as blood spewed from his mouth, and his body tensed as a flurry of punches came at him. The bellkeeper stood there motionless while the contestant had collapsed to the ground. After taking down the contestant, he seemed more confident and looked up at the remaining ones and said, "Next." On the upper level, the captains were wide-eyed with surprise, commenting one after another, "It seems he's really petty." Below them on the basketball court, contestant after contestant stepped up, but the bellkeeper's strength was no match for them. In just a few moments, 4 had been eliminated. Du Wang observed and asked, "So it's only these 2 left, huh?" The remaining 2 contestants were a female contestant with red hair named Seo Kyung and Ji-won. He pursed his lips and observed the recent losses of the other contestants, and looked over at Do-gil, the first one to pass. He thought, after that guy, the examiner went crazy. What do I do now? Or should I volunteer now? While he was confused, Seo Kyung had already stepped forward without volunteering. She took out a bow and drew it back. Ji-won was gaping with surprise. The bellkeeper was also surprised by the special weapon she chose. Seo Kyung shot an arrow at the bellkeeper. Ji-won's eyes widened in surprise as he watched them. He quickly caught her arrow. He then scowled angrily, breaking the arrow and growling. "What are you doing?" She calmly added, "Next contestant, please." While he stood behind her, stunned, he smiled and reminded her, "Next time you have to say something first." Seo Kyung immediately drew her bow and aimed again. "Yes then, I'll begin now." Right after she shot a series of arrows at him, the bellkeeper immediately ran in another direction, dodging the continuous stream of arrows. He glanced to the side and noticed an arrow suddenly changed its direction strangely. It curved towards him unexpectedly. The bellkeeper immediately ducked down while running to dodge that arrow. He then continued to look forward, moving and thinking, "What the hell is this?" His face scrunched up. "This is no good. It's a bit of a hassle, but I have to speed up then." At that moment, the bellkeeper charged at Seo Kyung, while she still held her bow straight forward and continued to shoot. As she released her hand, what Seo Kyung saw before her was the bellkeeper's hovering hand, but at that moment the final arrow she had shot had stuck straight down into the bell. Seo Kyung's face darkened. She stood straight and looked at him. The bellkeeper also stopped his actions, his face still contorted, and his mouth agape with surprise. Seo Kyung stared at him intently, as if telling him to back off. The bellkeeper slowly stood up straight, lowering his hand without saying a word. Ji-won saw the girl's technique and was immediately surprised. "Whoa, incredible." He watched the female contestant's back as she left. Ji-won replayed her match in his mind, analyzing each move, using the bow and arrow to distract the examiner, and then passing neatly. He quickly refocused on the present. So, now the court was only left with him and the bellkeeper. Ji-won also understood it was his turn. He immediately tried to wake himself up by slapping himself hard on the cheeks, encouraging himself in his mind, "Come on." Meanwhile, Ju-ha was pondering about the female contestant. He commented, "That's ridiculous." Du Wang smiled and said, "It's not just your person who's good." Hearing that, his ego immediately deflated. Finally, he agreed. "Yeah, I admit it." Ju-ha then glanced at Tae-hyung, smiling and saying, "But that just means the next one will have a hard time, right, Lee Tae-hyung? Or maybe it won't even be that hard because it'll be over soon." But in response, Tae-hyung just closed his eyes and let out a calm sigh. Seeing that he got angry, "Hey, you should listen when I'm talking." But suddenly, from the court below, a loud noise made Ju-ha freeze. The 3 of them looked down in complete surprise. Ju-ha was stunned. He stuttered, "Huh?" Below them on the basketball court, Ji-won, in just 1 minute, had been able to take down the bellkeeper with just his normal punches. Seeing Ji-won's terrifying power, they were all wondering, "What is going on?" Tae-hyung smiled. He spoke up. "Ah, I forgot to mention." The 3 of them all looked at Tae-hyung with surprise. "That Kim Ji-won guy," Tae-hyung said with a confident tone. "His sync rate is 99%. Meanwhile, Ji-won still didn't understand what was happening, and he let out a huh and released his hand. Ju-ha stuttered in surprise as he saw his power suddenly spike. What is going on here? Rewind to 1 minute ago. When he began his advance, both men stood opposite each other in a tense atmosphere. Ji-won gulped and calmed himself. Just do it like last time. Nothing has changed. He recalled his encounter with Yong-sam. He had activated his power that way before too, and now, he activated it again. Assuming his stance as energy slowly coursed through his body, Ji-won reached down, unfastening a button on his shirt. Then he raised his hand back up, his eyes starting to glow. Suit. Activate. He then immediately charged at the bellkeeper. The man looked confident, getting into position and saying smugly, "No weapon this time," but when Ji-won dashed forward, his eyes widened. Stunned by his speed, Ji-won wasn't running in a normal straight line, but in a dizzyingly fast zigzag to trick his opponent's eyes. By the time he closed in on the bellkeeper, he had already cocked his fist back. His face contorted in concentration. As Ji-won threw the first punch, the man quickly leaned away and raised his forearm to block. The bellkeeper was still reeling from his lightning speed. What is this pace? And as he thought, Ji-won charged at him again. His fist seemed to be charged with even more power than before, his eyes glowing brightly, and he threw a punch at the bellkeeper's chest. But he was lucky enough to block it in time. The clash of their energies shook him, and he gritted his teeth anxiously. Seeing Ji-won's punch, both Do-gil and Seo-kyung were thoroughly impressed. The bellkeeper was knocked backward, sliding across the floor and thinking through clenched teeth. He's not just fast. Ji-won's eyes flashed again, making him wonder, could it be this strength and speed? He crouched slightly, preparing to launch himself forward. As he was wondering if it was an awakened ability, Ji-won shot straight toward the bellkeeper, his incredible speed impossible to follow with the naked eye. His eyes widened as Ji-won's fist filled his vision. He screamed internally, "No!" But it was too late. Ji-won landed a powerful punch squarely on the bellkeeper's face, sending him reeling back. His face was numb after taking the blow. Ji-won once again pushed off his toes and leaped into the air. He dove down toward the bellkeeper with his next fist, a trail of immense energy following behind him. When Ji-won landed with a crushing punch to the bellkeeper's chest, he was slammed flat on the floor. His limbs splayed out from the pressure. The other contestants stared at the fight, completely dumbfounded. Even the captains were frozen in surprise. Ji-won's suit finally powered down, releasing a plume of smoke into the air. Beneath him, the bellkeeper lay motionless, and the court floor was cracked. Ji-won collected himself and looked up. He slowly walked toward the bell, and easily pressed it with his bare hand, something no other contestant had managed to do. They just stood there, mouths agape in utter disbelief. Right after that, the other three contestants erupted in celebration, screaming as if they had gone mad with excitement. They surrounded Ji-won, waving their arms and legs and yelling, "That was insane. I can't believe it. What was that?" While he just stood there confused, Seo-kyung was also stunned by what she had just witnessed. "Do-gil stamel." Incredible. Ji-won then scratched his head awkwardly while looking at the cheering male contestants. After hearing Tai-hyung, Ju-ha asked, "A 99% sync rate. Is that real?" Tai-hyung shot back. "Didn't you only recruit people who passed the verification? Well, I do too," he said with a satisfied, triumphant smile. A while later, in the office of the middle-aged examiner, an employee stood before his desk after delivering a document. He reviewed Ji-won's information on the paper, reading to himself, 99% sync rate. This examiner was Hui Ryong. He asked, "Can he really do that without going into a synchro rage?" The person replied, "That's what we need to assess." He was the tactical advisor Gil Yang. Hui Ryong placed the paper on his desk and remarked, "Interesting." Gil Yang replied, "But it's very dangerous." He agreed. Yes. He controlled the suit extremely well. The advisor said, "There's no guarantee that what happened in the past won't happen again." Hearing that, the examiner fell silent in thought. He finally gave his answer. "But on the other hand, we could obtain a new power." Hearing Hui Ryong's plan, Gil Yang also fell silent. The examiner then ordered, "Gather all the captains. We need to conduct a test." Back where Ji-won was standing, they were now in the waiting room. All the contestants' eyes were on him, which made Ji-won feel awkward. He scratched his head and whispered anxiously, "Man, this is stressful. I just did the same thing as last time. I didn't think I'd take him down so easily." Then his thoughts shifted. "But still, does this mean I've been acknowledged a little?" He noticed everyone was staring at him. Suddenly, a contestant held out his hand, as if wanting a handshake. It was Do-gil, who introduced himself. I'm Ha Do-gil. Ji-won shook his hand and replied, Hello. Do-gil nodded, saying, very impressive. You're pretty good. Please forgive me if I made any mistakes earlier. Hearing that, Ji-won smiled and said, thanks. It's nothing. Do-gil suddenly extended an invitation. If you're free, I'd like to treat you to some grilled intestines next time. Ji-won was taken aback by the sudden offer. Who? He tried to persuade him. I know a really good grilled intestine place. I only take people I acknowledge there. Hearing this, he could only stammer. Thinking to himself, this guy is really weird. Suddenly, Seo Kyung also appeared behind Do-gil. He looked over at her. The two of them stared at each other, communicating silently with their eyes. Do-gil finally broke the silence. You want to go too? The female contestant nodded without hesitation. He pushed up his glasses, contemplating in silence. He glanced back and forth between them as if scrutinizing them. He finally let her come along. All right then. It's settled. Ji-won looked at them, extremely confused. What's with this? Seems like this place is a magnet for weirdos. Suddenly, another woman appeared and called out, Contestant Kim Ji-won. He looked over in surprise. The person was Jong. He stuttered, Miss Jong. She walked away, saying, follow me. Ji-won replied with a quick, yes. Jong briefly explained, a special interview. After that, Ji-won was led into an isolated empty room. He turned, looking around and wondering, what is this place? Suddenly a voice came from the side. You're here. He immediately spun around. Before him, the examiner from earlier stood with the other captains in the special interview room. They stood solemnly side by side. While Ji-won was still surprised, Hui Ryong said, well then let's begin this special interview. Although still quite bewildered, he replied, yes. The examiner slowly explained, the reason we called you here is because you are special compared to the other contestants. Ji-won was very surprised to hear that. The man continued, you've heard it. Your synchronization rate is 99%. That is not normal. Not only is it not normal, but we also have to bear a rather significant risk by accepting you, and this interview is to assess the level of that risk. How much power can you unleash? How well can you maintain your sync rate? Will you suffer a mental breakdown? And so on. You need to convince us. Hui Ryong then looked at the captains and asked, so which of the captains will handle this? Suddenly, a male captain stepped forward. It was Ju-ha, the one who disliked Ji-won from the start. He volunteered confidently, I'll do it. Ju-ha stood opposite Ji-won. He was stunned seeing Ju-ha step forward to fight him. Completely shocked, he then looked back at Hui Ryong and asked, this test, is it fighting him? The man replied, that's right. We will observe the process and evaluate you. You should give it your all, because captains are on a completely different level. Hearing that, Ji-won immediately glared at Tae-hyung, knowing he must have revealed something to them. Tae-hyung just looked back at him with a slight smile. He looked back at the guy standing in front of him. Ju-ha was radiating a dense aura. He slowly approached, thinking, all right, let's do this. Ji-won then adjusted his sleeves, preparing to activate his power. I originally just joined for fun, but now that I've come this far, I can't just go home. His eyes widened, his pupils shining with energy. He said to himself, I will prove that I am worthy of this suit. His suit began to emit a massive amount of energy. The other man stood there motionlessly, silently observing Ji-won. Ju-ha recalled what Tae-hyung said. A 99% sync rate. He thought to himself, a 99% sync rate. It's very dangerous. A 99% sync rate. In other words, it means there's a latent risk of explosion. There is no guarantee that what happened before won't happen again. Ju-ha glanced at Tae-hyung, who was observing with his arms crossed, and muttered, Lee Tae-hyung, that bastard. I don't know what he was thinking bringing this kid in. I have to nip it in the bud while it's still weak. He immediately pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, activating his suit. He continued to think, I can't let him wear the suit. To do that, Ju-ha thought, as he shifted his foot and he swiftly dashed toward Ji-won, saying, don't blame me. I have nothing against you personally. He was wide-eyed with surprise at Ju-ha's speed. With an unpredictably swift move, he landed a hard punch on his face, knocking Ji-won back. But I'm going to make you explode. He stumbled back with a bruised cheek. Ju-ha continued to land more blows on him. Du-won watched, sweating profusely from the intense fight. He commented with a mouthful of snacks. Whoa. He's not holding back at all, Rin-ah replied. Of course not. That's the point of the test. Du-wang watched Ji-won get cornered against the wall by Ju-ha, and asked again, When cornered, will he enter a synchro rage? But he's getting completely overwhelmed. I thought a 99% rate would be different, Rina observed and replied. Naturally, the sync rate is just a measure of how efficiently you use the suit's power, using less effort to produce more power. That's what makes it look high level. But that only applies to regular agents. She was referring to the bellkeeper from Ji-won's previous test. Rina continued. It's useless against an overwhelming power gap. Du Wang laughed and replied, I know that, but I thought he could use an awakened ability with extraordinary speed and power. She immediately retorted, not a chance. I don't know how he used an awakened ability. At that moment, Ji-won drew his fist back, yelling as he gathered power. As he threw the punch, Ju-ha easily dodged it by ducking. Du Wang's voice continued. His awakened ability isn't normal, but both its speed and power are still incomplete. Right after dodging Ji-won's attack, Ju-ha immediately countered with an uppercut, sending him flying into the air. He gritted his teeth, struggling to stay conscious and wondering, what? How is this happening? It's completely ineffective. He then got up and kicked at Ju-ha, but he smoothly dodged it, leaving a slight opening. Ji-won took another punch from Ju-ha. He gritted his teeth as his face became battered and bruised. Ji-won thought, we're wearing the same suit. So why is the difference so huge? He remembered his first meeting with Tae-hyung, when he subdued him without even wearing a suit. Just like then, the same suit. So what's the difference? Ji-won then wondered. A 99% sync rate. What's so special about that? But suddenly, Ju-ha grabbed his wrist, saying, no, you are very special. You haven't had the suit for long. Then he lifted Ji-won's entire body up and slammed him hard onto the floor. Ju-ha calmly continued, yet you've already used an awakened ability. That's an unbelievable talent. Ji-won then coughed up blood. He was now lying flat on the floor. Ju-ha stood over him and said, but this is as far as you go. Trash with some crude talent. He raised his fist, then punched down hard into Ji-won's stomach, shouting, is still just trash. The impact to his stomach was immense. His eyes and mouth wide open in pain. Ju-ha showed him no mercy, grabbing him by the collar and lifting him up. Continuing, I don't acknowledge you. The people here have all endured harsh lives. Even those who failed the test have worked hard just to get here. I looked up your file. It's disgusting. You didn't hesitate to do dirty work. Have you ever actually tried? You only got here through the luck of your talent, he said, then let go, dropping Ji-won freely to the ground. He no longer had the strength to support himself. Ju-ha glared at him, continuing his harsh words. Then you are nothing but a maggot, a malignant tumor on society. That doesn't change here. If you join the White Knight organization, then White Knight will be corrupted. I cannot allow that to happen. White Knight doesn't need darkness. Go back to where you belong. Ji-won then slowly sat up, the man's words affecting him psychologically, his energy slowly turning purple. Ji-won then gritted his teeth so hard a vein bulged. He raised his fist and let out a strained yell, and lunged at Ju-ha, who watched him calmly. When he swung his fist, Ju-ha again easily dodged by leaning away. Just then, Ju-ha thought to himself, almost there, just a little more pressure, and the synchro rage will activate. His eyes slowly turning purple. Synchro rage, influenced by emotion. As soon as he thought that, Ju-ha threw a punch. Hui Ryong watched the fight, making no comment, but when he realized his all-out punch missed so easily, and that Ju-ha was about to punch him in the face, Ji-won froze, asking himself, is this really as far as I can go? But suddenly, there was a loud noise, and Ju-ha's eyes widened in surprise. Ji-won had caught his fist with ease. He retorted, you're right. I am trash. But what? Lucky talent. Lucky my ass. His eyes widened, his pupils constricting as he focused his power. Ji-won then yelled, what do you people know? Effort is a luxury for those who already have everything. Things that are normal for you are things that others have to fight for. It's true I'm garbage, but you say I'll bring darkness to White Knight. Hearing his confident words, Ju-ha was completely shocked. Their two energies clashed, sparks of power becoming visible on their arms. Ji-won continued, what makes you so sure of that? Isn't the synchro rage subsiding? I have seen the light from White Knight. He raised his fist and swung at Ju-ha, who tensed up and immediately dodged. Ji-won didn't stop talking. And you called it lucky talent? No, it's precisely because of that I cherish this situation even more. Ji-won's movement speed spiked. He flashed across the room, then he raised his fist again. I won't bring darkness to White Knight. This time, Ji-won's transcendent speed was beyond Juha's imagination, and his eyes widened in shock. Even Wei Ryong couldn't believe it. Rin Ah and Du Wang froze. They stuttered. Wah! What is that? While Ta Hyung-yu smirked proudly, Ji-won unleashed his ultimate skill, the energy within him suddenly erupting. 100 times stronger than before, Ji-won had activated Shockwave Break, his eyes turning a deep blue. I will bring to White Knight light. Right after, a powerful tremor shot through the room, the testing room floor shattering along the path of his energy. He immediately threw his punch. Using the Shockwave Break technique to Juha's astonishment, he stared wide-eyed, stammering in his mind, "Am I going to be defeated?" Juha's pride wouldn't allow it, so he drew his own weapon to fight back, his blade glowing with immense energy. The fight was incredibly tense, a mismatch in power. One man with his bare hands, the other with a weapon. Just as they were about to collide, someone suddenly appeared between them to intervene. This caused both Ji-won and Juha to grit their teeth in surprise. But even so, they showed no signs of stopping. Finally, all three of them collided, creating a massive tremor in the test room. A great flash of energy erupted, shattering the floor of the room. The observing captains were incredibly surprised. Only Shui Ryong seemed quite calm. Smoke slowly rose as the energy dissipated. One hand blocked Ji-won's fist, while the other hand stopped Juha from drawing his sword. The person who intervened in the fight was Tae Hyung, using his extraordinary strength to stop both energy flows at once. Tae Hyung then released the two of them. He looked at Juha with a frown. "Were you trying to kill someone today?" Kang Juha's brows furrowed as he seemed to calm down. He then sheathed his sword and irritably slapped Tae Hyung's hand away, shouting, "Don't exaggerate. I was just trying to stop him." The two of them stared at each other in silence. In the end, Juha finally turned his back to leave, cursing angrily. Damn it. He shoved the testing room door open and left. He left the others standing there in confusion, followed by the loud slam of the door. Everyone stood there, staring at the slammed door. Hui Ryong spoke up. "Well, if it's come to this, I think everything is settled." Du Wang and Rin Ah looked at each other and chuckled silently. He looked over at Ji-won and said, "This suit really fits you. You've passed the requirements, Kim Ji-won." At that moment, his suit continued to radiate energy. In the afternoon, back at the White Knight skyscraper, inside Hui Ryong's office, Gil Yang stood at attention before his desk. He spoke. A 99% sync rate with an awakened ability was impressive enough, and now he even has a transcendent skill. The advisor replied, "We can't be sure it's a transcendent skill yet. Don't you need to master and systematize your energy for that? There's no guarantee he can use it again just because he did it once." Hui Ryong considered this. True, but what he showed was magnificent, especially his ability to suppress the synchro rage. Gil Yang replied, "I have to admit that part. But the fact that he's a ticking time bomb hasn't changed. We need to monitor him closely," he said. "But if he continues to develop like this, he will be a valuable asset to us. I have very high hopes. It's rare to find someone with such potential," Gil Yang added. "While his future is promising, risk management remains the top priority. If he can't be controlled, he could cause a major incident." Hui Ryong agreed. "That's right." He finally gave the order. "Keep an eye on him." Elsewhere in the hallway, Zhang was leading Ji-won to his new room. She began to explain, "Probationary members of White Knight will spend their first 3 years at the base for field adaptation training. This is a preparation process to act as a reserve team for emergencies. And it's also a process to get acquainted with the White Knight organization. In other words, starting today, you will be living at the base." He was a bit confused by this, and he asked, "So what about my house and my belongings?" Zhang smiled and said, "The company will take care of that. Your things have already been moved here." She walked to the door ahead and introduced it. "We're here. This is where you'll be staying from now on." He let out a little. "Oh," Zhang took out a keycard and swiped it, adding, "If you have any questions, feel free to ask your colleagues." Ji-won asked again. Colleagues? Are there other successful candidates besides me?" Zhang replied, "It's best you see for yourself." As she opened the door, inside were Seo Kyung from this morning, along with Do-gil, who was diligently doing push-ups. She announced, "These are the colleagues you'll be working with from now on." The two of them looked toward the main door. Seeing the familiar figure of the male contestant who had impressed them, Ji-won's eyes widened in surprise as well. "You guys." Do-gil flashed a grin and stood up. "Oh, so you passed too. I saw you get called out separately and wondered what was going on." Seo Kyung said nothing but gave a welcoming smile. Ji-won smiled back at them, thinking to himself, So these guys passed too. That's great. At least they're people I kind of know. Zhang said her final words before leaving. Well, then I won't be an awkward third wheel. The oath ceremony is tomorrow, so get some good rest. I'll be going now. After the door closed, the three of them were alone. Dougal pointed to another door, introducing it. Your room is over there. We took the liberty of deciding since it was getting late. He replied. Oh, thanks. He walked over, grabbing the handle and turning it. When he opened the door, what he saw surprised him. He gasped when he saw how well furnished and comfortable his private room was, with a large bed and a chandelier on the ceiling. Without a second thought, Ji-won flopped onto the bed and closed his eyes to enjoy it. This room is amazing, but when he looked to the side, Ji-won saw blue containers holding his belongings, along with a special yellow bag. He looked at it and felt something was off, as it was wrapped in cloth, different from the other boxes. Ji-won immediately sat up, went over to examine the bag. What's this? Was this bundle already here? I didn't pack myself, so how would I know what's inside? He thought as he slowly unwrapped it. When he opened it, his eyes widened in surprise. It was a box containing a pristine gray suit. Who? A suit. He picked it up and wondered, what is this? When he looked down, he noticed something had fallen out of the box. It was a piece of paper. He picked it up. As he unfolded it, Ji-won was stunned by what he read. It was his grandmother's handwriting, with a message she had left for him. Ji-won was shocked. A letter from Grandma. The note read, "You've had it tough since you were little. Now I just hope you wear nice clothes and live a good life. I'm sorry." After reading it, he fell into a pensive mood. Grandma always told me, everyone has clothes that suit them. You should dress well and live well, so you won't be sad. But I didn't think so. Because to me, flashing back to his childhood, on a thick, snowy winter night, his grandmother called, Ji-won. He turned, yes. She knelt down and buttoned Ji-won's coat. It's so cold. Remember to bundle up when you go out. He smiled and replied, okay. His grandmother then praised him. My good boy Ji-won. Ji-won giggled playfully. Here. The time I spent with my grandmother was the warmest and happiest. His grandmother, and he then pushed a cart of cardboard boxes as they always did, the wheels rattling along with their conversation. Ji-won, it's so cold, you should go inside first. But I feel warm. And the jackpot stand is right over there. Oh, Grandma. If we're slow, misses. Okay, Ja will take it all. Seeing his grandmother's words of apology, Ji-won choked up and tears started to fall, soaking the letter she had written. So, Grandma, please don't be sorry. His voice started to tremble, and his cheeks were wet with tears. Ji-won realized and quickly wiped them with his sleeve. Seriously. Damn it. He then placed his hand on his grandmother's suit. Thank you, Grandma. From now on, I will only wear nice clothes. He touched it, as if making a promise. The next day, the contestants had gathered in the assembly hall, where the captains and examiners were also present. Ji-won had put on the suit his grandmother gave him, his expression brimming with confidence. Tae-hyung introduced himself. I'm the captain of Team 3, Lee Tae-hyung. Rin-ah also spoke up. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm the captain of Team 1, where you will be working. Du-wang smiled and added, nice to meet you. I'm the captain of Team 2, Cheon Du-wang. He then extended his hand to shake Ji-won's. Kim Ji-won, you did great in the test. A 99% sync rate, right? Do you meditate regularly or something? He chuckled and replied, No, not at all. Du-wang then clapped him on the back and shook his hand. But 99%. That's amazing. Anyway, I look forward to working with you. Let's do our best. Ji-won just gave a polite laugh and said, haha. Yes. Suddenly, Ju-ha appeared behind him and spoke. Hey. Ji-won flinched and turned, surprised to see it was Kang Ju-ha. The man was looking at him with an inscrutable gaze. Ji-won's mind raced. What is it? Why is he staring at me like that? He then responded, is there something you wanted to say? But suddenly, Ju-ha grabbed his tie. This made him extremely confused. Ji-won glanced down. Suddenly, he tightened Ji-won's tie for him. Ju-ha's knot tying was so fast he couldn't even follow it. What was that? He asked loudly. The man said, is it because you only finished high school? You don't even know how to tie a tie. Hearing that, he broke out in a cold sweat. What's this? Why ask that all of a sudden? Ju-ha asked. Or did you only finish middle school? He gave a short reply of, uh-huh. Ju-ha asked again. Can you read? He quickly answered. Of course I can. After finishing Ji-won's tie, he turned to leave. but he still kept his eyes on him. Ji-won noticed this and looked back at him in confusion. Ju-ha suddenly spoke again, as if threatening him. "I will be watching you." After saying that, Ju-ha brazenly walked up to Seo-kyung, greeting her as if nothing had happened. "Nice to meet you. You have a very strong foundation." Seeing him approach her so suddenly and offer a handshake, Seo-kyung also replied awkwardly, "Yes." While Ji-won wondered to himself, what was that all about? He scratched his head for a moment, then looked away. Then he heard a familiar voice say, "Weird, isn't he?" Ji-won looked over in surprise. It was the person he liked the most, Tae-hyung. Ji-won quickly took the initiative and held out his hand to shake. "Oh, Captain." Tae-hyung smiled and pointed at the guy behind him. "Don't worry about Kang Ju-ha. He's always been obsessed with academics, but he'll be better once you get to know him." At that, Ju-ha shot him an annoyed glare, and Ji-won just replied, "Oh, I see." He then said, "But I have a question. Usually in movies, aren't oath ceremonies more extravagant?" Tae-hyung retorted, "What? You want to show off that you're a spy?" Hearing that, he fell silent. Once the contestants had gotten acquainted with the captains, Hui Ryong spoke up. "We will now begin the oath ceremony for the new recruits." Immediately, the three of them stood at attention, perfectly in line. Gil Yang presented each of them with a White Knight certification plaque. Hui Ryong then announced, "Repeat after me." Du Gil was the first to speak, his voice loud, clear, and full of determination. 1. As an agent of White Knight, I swear to complete all missions to the best of my ability, strictly adhere to the organization's secrecy, and always prioritize the organization's interests in all situations. Seo-kyung spoke next. She was quite calm. "I swear to foster team spirit based on trust and cooperation with other agents, and strive for the safety and success of one another." Ji-won was the last to speak. He smiled confidently as he said, "I understand the goals and mission of White Knight, and swear to dedicate my honor and life to the organization, and always strive for self-improvement for the growth and success of White Knight," Hui Ryong declared. With this, Kim Ji-won, Ha Do-gil, and Lim Seo-kyung are officially recognized as agents of White Knight. Gil Yang continued, "Now we will proceed with the suit issuing ceremony. When your name is called, please step forward." Ji-won's name was the first one called. "Kim Ji-won." He answered loudly. "Yes." He slowly stepped forward. Gil Yang presented the suit to him. "This is your uniform from today on. Please take good care of it." Ji-won took it, smiling proudly as he examined it for a moment. The suit he was holding was engraved with the words White Knight, and it emitted his abundant energy. Ji-won said to himself, "It's starting." Suddenly, Hui Ryong approached him and said, "Now Kim Ji-won, put on your agent uniform and follow me." He flinched in surprise. Ji-won was both curious and confused. "What? Just me?" he replied. "Yes, because you are special." A while later, he was in the training area, as instructed by Hui Ryong. The two of them stood inside the test chamber. Hui Ryong clasped his hands behind his back and said, "So there will be special training." Ji-won heard this and asked, "Why are we here?" Veins started to bulge on his neck as he answered, "I already told you. Special training. Honestly, I'm curious too. It seems you haven't shown your full power yet." Hui Ryong then unbuttoned his suit jacket, activating his own suit. Suddenly, a massive amount of energy erupted. The muscles inside Hui Ryong's body bulged terrifyingly, and they even showed signs of expanding. Seeing him suddenly grow in height and size, Ji-won could only stare blankly, his mouth hanging open in shock. He was now much taller and larger than Ji-won, his muscles bulging menacingly. Hui Ryong calmly urged, "Try hitting me with everything you've got. Don't worry, I won't hold it against you." Hearing this, Ji-won was terrified. Sweat poured down his face and his body trembled. "What is this?" Hui Ryong then calmly said, "Give me your best shot." He put his hands on his hips, presenting his stomach and chest for Ji-won to aim at. Seeing such a strange training exercise, he was confused and let out a huh. Hui Ryong cracked his neck, warming up before the session and saying, "I need to know the limits of your strength before I can make a training plan." He was extremely anxious, thinking frantically, "Holy crap, do I really have to hit him? What kind of new guy hits his boss like this?" Ji-won then stuttered, "Boo. But what if I hurt you?" Hui Ryong replied without the slightest hesitation, "Don't worry. My body is a lot tougher than you think. Just give it your all. That will be your first exercise for today," he said as he slapped his own chest. Ji-won could only give an awkward smile. He curled his hand into a fist and said, I'm only doing this because you told me to, Wei Ryong replied placidly. Don't worry, I won't retaliate. He let out a deep breath, steeling himself before the attack. Then he began to activate his suit. A man of his word, he said it, then thought to himself. Damn it. Whatever. As he adjusted his sleeve, energy immediately erupted. Ji-won then rushed at Hui Ryong after activating his power. He slid to a halt right in front of him. Hui Ryong was a little surprised by Ji-won's sudden approach. He leaped up, raising his fist high, his eyes wide and teeth gritted from the immense power he was gathering. Finally, he brought it down on Hui Ryong's head, violently snapping his head to the side. 1 month later, at the White Knight skyscraper, Hong Sua was happily cleaning a room in the building. She wiped the glass surface of the room, then she mopped the floor, dusted away cobwebs and wiped the tables and chairs. In just a short while, everything inside the room was sparkling clean, gleaming under Sua's expert hand. She smiled and wiped the sweat from her forehead, thinking to herself, there. Perfect. Cleaning is still the best. Spotless and shining. Suddenly, the main door opened. Do-gil and Seo-kyung appeared. He was startled to see Sua. Do-gil immediately bowed, greeting her respectfully. Hello, senior agent. While Seo-kyung bowed her head silently, Sua replied, You must be the new recruits. Hello, Do-gil then said loudly. Yes. We're looking forward to working with everyone, she replied. Good. I'll show you to your seats. She then guided Do-gil to his computer desk. Ha, Do-gil. Your spot is here. It's a spacious desk and there's a bookshelf right next to it. Very convenient. Hearing Sua's introduction, he replied, Thank you, senior agent. Sua continued by taking Seo-kyung to the desk opposite hers. Seo-kyung, your spot is by this window. The lighting is good. It'll be easy to concentrate. She also smiled and nodded. Sua finally smiled at them, her face bright as she advised. Any other questions? Just feel free to ask. Want me to teach you how to clean too? Do-gil raised his hand and asked. Senior, the computer is locked for security reasons. How do I open it? Hearing this, Sua immediately became flustered. Security. Is there something like that? Oh, that is, a man's voice cut her off. They all looked over, their eyes wide with surprise. It was Tae-hyung and Jong. After giving the password, he explained, It's the day White Knight was founded. Remember it. The two of them walked over. Sua smiled and greeted them. Manager. Captain, Jong said. I'm in charge of security. I will guide you through the rest. Both Seo-kyung and Do-gil stood up to greet them. Jong looked at the two recruits and asked, Ha Do-gil. Lim Seo-kyung. Hello. Has the past month been all right? Do-gil answered, Yes. It's been fine. Tae-hyung said. Everyone please sit down. Once all four were seated, he began to ask, Have you two completed the basic training course successfully? Do-gil answered quickly, Yes. No problem at all. Tae-hyung asked another test question. Good. So why does White Knight exist? Do-gil answered fluently. White Knight is a secret organization that protects national security and the lives of the people. We carry out missions to combat criminal organizations and terrorism, while also gathering critical intelligence to pass on to government agencies. He nodded in satisfaction at the answer. You've got a firm grasp of it, but when he looked at an empty desk, Tae-hyung wondered. But where is Kim Ji-won? He hasn't arrived yet. Do-gil raised his hand to speak. He was still in training this morning. Hearing that, he gave a pleased smile, with no intention of scolding. Oh, he's really determined. Surprisingly, just at that moment, a figure entered the room. A familiar voice called out confidently, Sorry I'm late. Everyone in the room looked toward the main door. Tae-hyung smiled in response. Long time no see. Kim Ji-won. The person who appeared was Ji-won. He looked so different from a month ago. His appearance was much sharper. He even knew how to style his hair and dress neatly, as if he had escaped the shadow of his former deadbeat self. Back in Shui Ryong's office, Gil Yang stood before his desk and asked, I heard the commander was just playing around again this morning. He replied as if it were obvious. Oh, come on. Playing around. It was training. He asked again. You've been training almost every day for a whole month. Has he improved much? Hui Ryong remarked. You're quite curious, aren't you? He finally answered. At first, he just swung his arms and legs around. But now his technique and stamina are on another level. A 99% sync rate is really something else. His speed and power are both outstanding. But he still lacks experience. Gil Yang asked another question. What about his superpower? Wei Ryong said. He can use it, but it's still more instinctual than intentional. He'll only be able to master it through actual combat experience. Hearing that, he concluded, so real combat is the key. No matter how great his potential is, without combat experience, he'll still be limited. He agreed. That's right. You've hit the nail on the head. Just like how the fight with Kang Ju-ha helped him mature. Only real combat can truly forge someone. I have high expectations, he said, then looked out his office window, which looked down on the testing chamber below. After all the days of special training with Ji-won, the room was covered in cracks from their intense sessions. Hui Ryong finally said, let's see just how much he has grown. Back in the meeting room, Ji-won walked over to his desk and sat down. Tae-hyung began. Now that everyone's here, let's start the briefing. As you all know, the goal of White Knight is to protect the security of the people, but in recent years, there has been an organization causing chaos both at home and abroad. That organization is Black Moon, or as its name implies, the Dark Moon. Tae-hyung continued. Black Moon is a multinational criminal organization of unknown origin, a dangerous syndicate that has caused countless incidents overseas. Recently, they have infiltrated our country and have already caused several incidents. Their next moves are highly unpredictable. There are reports that the Demon Commander, the leader of Black Moon, has also come to our country. Therefore, eliminating them is White Knight's ultimate mission. The Demon Commander system includes First Demon Commander, Second Demon Commander, Third Demon Commander, Fourth Demon Commander, Fifth Demon Commander, Sixth Demon Commander, Seventh Demon Commander, Eighth Demon Commander, and the one who leads all the Demon Commanders is still unknown. Tae-hyung added, we have been tracking and fighting Black Moon for a long time. Ji-won has been through it, so he should understand. The previous human trafficking incident was also part of the campaign to hunt down Black Moon. While you were training, we found an important lead. He began to click through the presentation. On the projector screen was the portrait of a man, Park Jin-tae. Tae-hyung slowly narrated. He's an illegal arms dealer who has amassed a huge fortune through smuggling and drug distribution. He also acts as a broker, distributing cloned suits on the black market. These suits are believed to have originated from Black Moon. If we can capture Park Jin-tae, we can get a hold of Black Moon's tail. Do-gil raised his hand to speak. So our mission is to capture Park Jin-tae, he replied. Correct. However, his current location is still unclear, so first we need to capture this guy. Again, the projector screen switched to the portrait of another man, with a scar on his lip. Tae-hyung introduced him. His nickname is Monge. He's the head of the Monge gang in Ansan. He is also Park Jin-tae's only relative. We capture him to interrogate him for information on Park Jin-tae. He cracked a smile. And this mission will be assigned to the three of you. Immediately, Do-gil's eyes widened in surprise. Seo-kyung showed no signs of hesitation, and Ji-won was taken aback. Tae-hyung crossed his arms. He asked again, can you do it? Everyone looked at the portrait of the man on the screen. Then the three of them answered in unison. Yes, we'll follow your orders. A while later, at the first warehouse of the Black Moon Group, when they opened the warehouse door, their side was numerous. Yet they only saw the three of them. One of them asked angrily, Who? What's this? Who sent these kids here? The three of them looked at them in silence. Then they immediately activated their suits and said, this will be over soon. Energy slowly emanated as Do-gil took off his glasses and Ji-won adjusted his sleeves. A while later, at the central control center, in the control room, Tae-hyung was sitting and scrolling on his phone. Suwa sat opposite to him, and Jeong was looking at the computer. What he was watching so intently was a martial arts and action movie. Suwa spoke up, asking with a worried tone, Hey, is this really okay? Letting the rookies go on a mission by themselves like this? Jeong smiled and said, It'll be fine. They've all been fully trained. And if there's an emergency, the captain will provide support. But Tae-hyung just nonchalantly replied while glued to his phone. I'm not going. I'm too lazy. Hearing that she let out a loud, huh? So grew even more worried. The captain isn't going, Tae-hyung calmly replied. Yeah. That Kim Ji-won guy. He's already broken through the wall. He suddenly smiled. The wall refers to the area beyond a 50% synchronization rate. So why 50%? Because when the rate exceeds 50%, each wearer begins to exhibit unique characteristics. This is called an awakening. Awakenings manifest us enhanced physical abilities, increased strength and speed, energy control, pyrokinesis, hydrokinesis, mutation, and matter manipulation and transformation. And when this awakened ability is refined, to develop it into the strongest technique, it is called a transcendent skill. As Taehyung spoke, he held up 2 fingers. Analyzing. Currently, Kim Ji-won possesses 2 awakened abilities. Divine Eye, the ability to see the flow of energy, and the ability to control the energy within his body. Using these 2 abilities, he has achieved an awakening of enhanced strength and speed, and has even developed his own transcendent skill. In terms of ability alone, he's at least on par with a captain. There's no way he'd lose to some small-time thugs. Hearing that explanation, Zoa understood better. Taehyung continued to consider, and the other 2, they're pretty competent too. Back at the Black Moon warehouse, a thug got punched in the face so hard, he spat up blood. He was laid out flat by Ji-won's blow. Another one jumped at him from behind, raising a knife to slash down at Ji-won, who wasn't prepared, but luckily, another blade blocked it. When Ji-won spun around to look, what he saw was Do-gil blocking the attack for him. The man pulled out another knife, screaming madly, but Do-gil, in just a few swift strikes too fast for the naked eye, subdued the thug and knocked him back, the weapon also flying from his hand. He then stomped hard on his stomach while the thug was still dazed. Just then, another one charged at Do-gil from behind, raising an iron pipe to ambush him, but arrows suddenly struck him in the back. The thug hadn't even raised his defense, and took multiple hits in a row. He immediately collapsed before Do-gil could even turn to counterattack. He too was surprised that Seo Kyung was 1 step ahead of him. She looked at Do-gil with a determined gaze. He smiled back warmly. On the other side, another man with a gun fired repeatedly at them, cursing, "You bastards." But despite the man's frantic shooting, none of the 3 were injured. They didn't retreat. Instead, they slid forward and dodged skillfully. Seo Kyung raised her bow and took aim. She drew the bowstring back, as a thick aura of energy billowed out. The moment the arrow was released, it shot towards the man and pierced through the hands holding the gun, causing the thug to lose his weapon. One by one, the 3 of them took down the remaining thugs. They swarmed them in a mob. But even with just 3 of them, they were able to easily clear a path. Seeing his side gradually being overwhelmed by just 3 people from some unknown organization, the man observing from the sidelines, Monga, became extremely worried. He wondered to himself, what is this? Not even bullets can pierce them. His expression turned grim. Sweat drenched his face. Are they the police or some other organization? The 3 of them didn't stop, continuously attacking the incoming enemies. None of them were a match for the trio. Whatever the case, is fighting like this even normal? Just then, Ji-won looked over at him and smirked. Even Do-gil had noticed his presence. Mungye immediately made a break for the back door. His only thought was to escape. I have to run, but suddenly, one of his accomplices was sent flying by the trio, landing right in Mungye's escape path. Forcing him to stop, Do-gil slowly approached him, asking in a menacing voice, "Where do you think you're going?" This made Mungye turn his head in fear. He once again shouted an order. "Stop him." Immediately, 2 of his underlings charged towards them. Ji-won suddenly slid forward with his fist raised, blocking their path. His eyes widened, his pupils slowly turning gold, converting his energy, speed. Right after that, Ji-won took care of both of them with a single swift motion. Both of them were slammed into each other, sent flying into the air from the aftershock of the attack. After the blow landed, the 2 of them screamed in agony, their mouths and eyes wide open as they fell freely to the ground. Seeing his 2 underlings taken down, lying unconscious on the ground, Mungye cursed out loud, "Damn it." He then desperately charged at them. "You think you can catch me?" But Mungye in his haste overlooked Seo Kyung, who was kneeling and aiming her bow at him. As the arrow was released, it flew toward him at incredible speed. It lodged deep in Mungye's shoulder, throwing him backward. Mungye's body flew uncontrollably backward, slamming into the metal frame behind him. Mungye clutched his shoulder where the arrow was embedded and screamed in pain. "My shoulder." He noticed on the ground below him the dark silhouettes of the 3 of them approaching him. Mungye looked up in surprise. Before him, the 3 of them had closed the distance. Ji-won gave a triumphant smile. He tilted his head and taunted, "Gotcha." A while later, at the White Knight headquarters, Yongdyungpo branch, Mongye had been brought to the interrogation room. He sat there in silence. Jong looked at the 3 new recruits and praised them. "You've all worked hard." Ji-won heard this and shyly deflected. It was nothing," Taehyung said casually. "Of course, if you can't do that much while wearing the suit, you're not qualified to be an agent." Ji-won noticed his unimpressed expression and became dejected. Seeing this, Jong smiled and said, "Don't be so harsh. Come on. Anyway, it's time to interrogate this bastard." Do-gil realized the topic of the next mission and asked, "Interrogation." "Us," Jong replied. "That's right. The three of you will directly question him. This is also an extension of your training. A White Knight agent's duty isn't just fighting. Gathering intelligence is also crucial, especially when the enemy is hiding something. You need to know how to extract information from them." Do-gil raised his hand to speak. He continued to ask, "So what do we need to investigate?" "That Park Jin-tae guy who deals in fake suits," she answered. "That's right. This bastard is Park Jin-tae's younger brother. He might know where Park Jin-tae is hiding." Jong quickly assigned the task. "Let's start with Lim Seo-kyung." She immediately nodded. Seo-kyung entered the interrogation room. She sat opposite Mangai, while observing from the other side of the one-way glass. Everyone fell silent. Do-gil spoke up, wondering. It's been 10 minutes and still dead silent. Right after that, an announcement was heard. Switch. Which meant that Lim Seo-kyung's interrogation had failed. Do-gil was the next to interrogate Mangai. He began lecturing him loudly on civic education. If you do bad things, you must receive a fitting punishment. Everyone can make mistakes, but if you don't admit them and take responsibility, then it's no longer a mistake but a crime. Humans have a conscience. A conscience isn't just a moral standard, but the only standard for self-correction in life. Having a conscience is what stops you from harming others and keeps you on the right path. But if you ignore your conscience and continue down the wrong path, you will eventually fall into a bottomless pit. This moment is your crossroads. If you admit your faults and are honest, everyone has a chance to start over. If you are determined to change, you can still begin anew. To be honest right now, and to escape the darkness that envelops you. I know you're hesitant right now. You've gone too far. Done too many things. You might think it's useless to talk now, but don't think that. Everyone has the right to admit their mistakes and start a new life. Don't deprive yourself of that chance. Admitting your mistakes isn't weakness, it's courage. Being honest right now is a sign of your determination to change. Without that determination, you will live your whole life in darkness. If you miss this opportunity, you will spend the rest of your life paying for the crimes you didn't dare to admit. Being tortured by a relentless and long-winded lecture from Do-gil, which was both loud and rambling, made Mongi tremble in fear that his eardrums were about to burst. Seeing this young man's one-of-a-kind interrogation method, everyone was at a loss, as they themselves were taking damage. Is this a new kind of torture? My ears are ringing. But even after Do-gil had exhausted all his saliva talking, the announcement came. Switch. He immediately fell silent with his mouth still open, indicating that Do-gil's interrogation had failed. After that, Ji-won slowly walked to the interrogation room with a very professional look. So, it's finally my turn. Let me show you my skills. Jong and Tae-hyung saw his confident energy, and they were impressed, but just a few minutes later, they were speechless when they saw his interrogation. It turns out his method was similar to Tae-hyung's before. Using a lie detector, he repeatedly stomped on Mangai's body. Even as he curled up to protect his face, Ji-won yelled urgently, "Start talking." He didn't stop putting pressure on the stubborn guy. This is how you're supposed to use a lie detector. But in the end, Kim Ji-won's interrogation failed. Jung realized the complexity of the problem. She said to Tae-hyung, "You learned these weird tricks from the commander, didn't you?" But he just lazily said, "It's good for learning." She shouted. "Captain," after a moment of thought, Tae-hyung said, "All right, training is paused here. Let me show you how a professional interrogation is done." After that, he went over to Mangai and used the same method as Ji-won, repeatedly stomping on him. Seeing Mangai, who had just taken a beating, now having to endure more, both Do-gil and Seo-kyung just watched in silence. Jong was exasperated. She put her hand on her forehead. This is pathetic. A while later, Tae-hyung left the interrogation room. His clothes splattered with blood. Jong and the others were waiting outside. She asked, "What's the result?" He stood with his hands on his hips, his face unfazed as he said, "His will is very strong. He's definitely been through rigorous training." She just gave a perfunctory reply. "Ah, I see," silently guessing the true meaning. In short, they got nothing. Jong then muttered to herself, "If only Eri were here right now." Hearing a strange name, Do-gil immediately asked, "Who's Eri?" Tae-hyung answered, "She's our organization's interrogation specialist." Jong looked at him and wondered, "So what do we do now?" He just let out a non-committal hum. Suddenly, Ji-won raised his hand from the side. I have an idea. Everyone immediately looked over at him. Ji-won smirked. He confidently declared, to catch Park Jin-tae. The method is, Mongye was currently sitting alone in the empty investigation room, where he was being watched by a single guard. He cursed internally. Those bastards. They're trying to find my weakness. But who are they anyway? They're not like the police. Nor are they ordinary criminals. He thought back to the three of them in battle. Mongye covered his face and continued to think. No, that doesn't matter now. I have to get out of here first. And I have to quickly inform my boss. Luckily, those dogs have already left. Only this guy is left. He immediately targeted the lone guard. With that thought, Mongye immediately grabbed the underside of the table and flipped it over, distracting the guard. Mongye used that opportunity to duck down and rush at him, thinking, I can take him. Then, he put the guard in a chokehold with his forearm. While the man screamed, Wah! What? The two of them scuffled without anyone noticing. Finally, when the table fell, it crashed loudly onto the ground. Mongye immediately ran. He quietly made his escape after dealing with the guard. At night, in a large, well-lit mansion, inside, a man was sitting in front of a large television screen on a table. He sat there with a cigar in his hand, and behind him stood a large number of his underlings. He frowned as he watched something. His face was familiar. That's right. He was the fake supersuit dealer, Park Jin-tae. On the screen, a pair of glowing red eyes appeared. They were sharp and dangerous, their yellow pupils shining in the dark. The figure wore a white suit with a red tie, its body emanating a dense energy. Jin-tae cursed under his breath. Those damn White Knight bastards. This deal is crucial. He raised the cigar and took a puff. If this succeeds, I'll make a huge profit, and then I can run somewhere where there's no sign of White Knight. His thoughts drifted to his deepest desires, living a comfortable life on the beach, being served by many young women in bikinis. Jin-tae then looked back at his fake suits. I sold these fakes to make money, but what did I get? I have to live in fear of White Knight every day. It's better to just close shop and run with the money. Suddenly, a frantic voice called from outside. Boss. Boss. Causing Jin-tae and his men to turn, and the person hastily pushing the door open was Mongye. He had returned to the base after escaping from White Knight's facility. Seeing Mongye's disheveled state, he asked, What's wrong? Jin-tae wiped the sweat from his face, his breathing still ragged. Jin-tae continued to ask worriedly, What is it? Why are you here? Mongye immediately rushed forward and replied loudly, Boss, we have to run now. It's serious. Yin-tae still didn't understand. Who? What are you talking about? He loudly recounted. I was captured. They're after you, boss. Hearing that, he immediately broke into a cold sweat. Captured, Mongye told him how 3 people from a strange organization were sent to wipe out his men. Yeah, those guys in suits. They took down all our men. They're crazy. Hearing this account, he fell into a grim silence. Jin-tae pondered. Guys, in suits. Could it be White Knight? He then asked, So how did you? The man immediately replied, giving a proud thumbs up. I escaped when they let their guard down. When Jin-tae heard that, it felt like a bolt of lightning had struck him. Escaped? You? From White Knight? Hearing such a strange question, Mongye frowned in confusion. He was drenched in sweat. He yelled out in frustration. You idiot. Seeing Jin-tae's angry reaction, he still didn't understand what had really happened. Why is the boss so mad? Jin-tae then cursed again. You damn bastard. How could you possibly escape from White Knight? Mongye was stunned by that. Ooh. To put it simply, what's White Knight? The boss clutched his forehead, groaning impatiently. Oh, you really are an idiot. You didn't escape. Outside the main door, a group of people was slowly approaching. Jin-tae's voice continued. They let you go on purpose. Meanwhile, a young man in the group took off his glasses and wiped them with a cloth. To find this place, they let you go on purpose. Another person was already holding a bow, ready to attack. Tae-hyung then smirked, putting a cigarette in his mouth. He spoke up. As expected of a boss, he's pretty sharp, huh? They immediately turned upon hearing the strange voice. Seeing the group of men in black suits approaching, Jin-tae immediately yelled, Who are you? His men also turned towards them, preparing to defend. Tae-hyung smiled triumphantly. That's right. White Knight. Thanks to him, we were able to find this place easily. Thanks a lot. Back to when Ji-won was about to present his plan, Tae-hyung crossed his arms, looking at Ji-won and asking, Is there a way to find Park Jin-tae? He smiled and replied, There is. The captain smiled and listened intently. Go on, Ji-won suddenly revealed. My house is in the basement, so there are a lot of cockroaches. Hearing him give such an irrelevant answer, they were all startled and confused. Who? He smiled and continued. So, from spraying a lot of insecticide, I found out, when you spray insecticide, one of them will get hit and run back to its nest. Hearing him lay out the plan, Tae-hyung understood the hidden meaning. And then what? Ji-won replied. We let that cockroach go back to its nest. It will lead the way for us. At that moment, Mange had escaped the interrogation room, and he held up his phone screen, displaying his current location. To their hideout, back to the present. The White Knight team had arrived at Boss Jin-tae's mansion. Mange realized his mistake. He began to tremble. I was tricked, Jin-tae said. That's right. You idiot. You're the one who led them here. He could only muster a few words. Is that so? The boss was sweating as he addressed the other group. The ever-busy White Knight. Coming all this way for a nobody like me. Tae-hyung smirked and said, Are you playing dumb? Jin-tae could only curse under his breath. Damn it. Then he shouted loudly. No. Let me explain. I never wanted to sell those suits anyway. Hearing that, they remained silent. Letting him continue, Jin-tae tried to persuade them. Some demon threatened to kill me, so I was forced to sell them. Tae-hyung asked. So what does that have to do with White Knight? He recounted. One day they just showed up, beat my men to a pulp, and threatened to kill me. I really didn't want to get involved. The agent heard this and wondered, So when did you meet this demon again? Jin-tae continued to confess. I don't know. He shows up whenever he wants and then leaves. I really don't want anything to do with them. Tae-hyung listened to the unconvincing testimony. He smirked and said, All right, you can give a detailed report at headquarters. Jin-tae once again shouted in frustration. Damn it. Really? Why does everyone keep making things difficult for me? The agent calmly said, Come with me if you don't want to die. But he wasn't about to be captured so easily. He immediately resisted. Shut up. You bastard. Get lost. Get away. Like I'd go with you. Jin-tae's men quickly surrounded him protectively. Tae-hyung just smirked and said, What you want doesn't matter. You're coming with us. Jin-tae shouted back, Shut your mouth, you bastard. Then he looked at his men and ordered, What are you all waiting for? Take them out. After receiving the order, his men charged at White Knight with the intent to attack. Do-gil smirked confidently. It's useless. He immediately drew 2 knives. Do-gil lunged at a thug, intending to finish him with his knives. But the man was able to block his strike with his own weapon. His eyes widened in surprise as he looked up. The thug wasn't scared and even gave a strange smile. A stream of energy flowed from his body. Do-gil wondered, Can this guy not be beaten by brute force? At that moment, Jin-tae shouted again. Damn it. You think you're the only ones with super suits? We have them too. Most of his men were now wearing the suits. Seeing the complicated situation, Tae-hyung frowned. He snapped his cigarette and tossed it away. What a pain. Tae-hyung grabbed his tie and activated his suit. Venus agitation awakening. His body radiated with energy. He had activated his transcendent skill. Tae-hyung stood facing them brazenly, currently being targeted by several men. His pupils shone brightly with powerful energy. Tae-hyung immediately dashed towards them, launching a surprise attack. Using his ultimate technique, Extreme Speed Slash, he moved in a zigzag pattern at dizzying speeds. His attack motions were impossible to follow with the naked eye because of his transcendent speed. One by one, each man was taken down by Tae-hyung before they could even react. Seeing his men get decimated by Tae-hyung, Jin-tae was stunned, his face contorted in stress. Wah! What is this? He shouted another order. Get him! 2 more men rushed at Tae-hyung from behind, raising their weapons to ambush him. Tae-hyung caught their movements. He let out a loud teach. With another flash, Tae-hyung struck down both men in less than a second. He then looked back at his teammates. The 3 of them called out, Captain, we're here too. They all ran to join Tae-hyung. Jin-tae saw the White Knight members advancing and panicked, yelling with spittle flying everywhere. Stop them, immediately. The other underlings charged forward, preparing to attack them. The 2 sides clashed. Do-gil fought with weapons while Ji-won fought with his fists. He continuously stabbed with his knives. Each slash was swift and skillful, but the thug was not inferior, matching his rhythm and continuously blocking the attacks. Do-gil realized his opponent was his equal. He slashed and said, Your sword skills are pretty good. He suddenly smirked, raising both his knives. But this level is not enough. Du-gil zipped past the thug so quickly. The man had no time to defend, and was hit by multiple slashes at once. His body was sent flying into the air from the continuous blows. On the other side, Ji-won looked over at Du-gil and smiled. Impressed. Oh, they're done over there. Behind him, the other thug scowled and raised his fist. Ji-won turned just in time, his eyes suddenly turning gold. Then I will too. Immediately after, Ji-won unleashed a barrage of blows on the thug, sending him flying back without any resistance. Seeing them continuously overwhelming his forces, both Jin-tae and Munggae were drenched in sweat. He asked loudly, "Boss, it looks like we're being pushed back. They're on another level." Jin-tae gritted his teeth in both anger and fear. Looking at the situation unfolding before him, he muttered, "The kids, I can still handle them, but that guy is on a completely different level." Jin-tae glanced at Tae-hyung, who was single-handedly taking down as many men as the other three combined. Tae-hyung's eyes blazed with energy. There was no mercy in his attitude. Suddenly, an arrow flew out unexpectedly. It grazed past Jin-tae's head, startling him for a moment. He froze. The one who took the arrow was Munggae. A single shot to the head killed him instantly. It took Jin-tae a moment to react. He turned around, yelling loudly, You idiot." The one who shot the arrow was Seo-kyung. She lowered her hand, then she drew her bow again, aiming for her next target. Jin-tae, noticing her intent, Tae-hyung shouted to stop her. "Don't kill him," while he continued to take down the rest. Hearing this, Seo-kyung paused. She looked at Tae-hyung, then frowned and looked back at Jin-tae. He took that opportunity to turn and run, cursing under his breath. Damn it! He immediately ran for the back door, his men instantly rushing out to help him escape. Tae-hyung managed to catch this out of the corner of his eye. He immediately called out to the others. Kim Ji-won, Lim Seo-kyung, Ha-du-gil, go after Park Jin-tae. I'll handle things here. Tae-hyung instructed as he charged into the crowd of thugs. Hearing that, they shouted in unison, "Yes." Sir. One of them suddenly lunged at Ji-won, about to throw a punch. "Where do you think you're going?" Seo-kyung raised her bow. She drew the string back while aiming. As the arrow shot out, the man easily leaned his head to the side and dodged it, smiling and saying, "You think you can hit me?" Du-gil dashed forward and ducked down. He immediately slammed his knee into the man's face, knocking the thug backward and sending his glasses flying. He looked over at Ji-won and said, "Kim Ji-won, go." He immediately focused his gaze ahead, his eyes flashing with golden energy. With a single grunt, he shot forward at incredible speed. By now, Jin-tae was lost in the forest, running as far from the mansion as he could. He ran and panted, cursing under his breath. "Bastard. You damn bastards. Just a few more days. I just had to hold out until then, and I'd be out of this hellhole. Why did those damn White Knight bastards have to show up now? And that idiot too. Dumn it. Just run. I have to get out of the country no matter what. I can always make more money." But suddenly, there was a rustling sound behind Jin-tae, causing him to whip around in panic and yell, "Wah! What is this?" Behind Jin-tae was Ji-won with his godlike speed. Seeing him chasing with such insane speed, Jin-tae was terrified and cursed out loud. "What the hell?" Immediately, he lunged forward and delivered a kick to the man's back, sending Jin-tae sprawling forward. He coughed and lost his balance, falling face first to the ground and sliding forward. Even Ji-won had to slide and brace himself on the ground to control his speed. He panted after coming to a stop, looking at the man and thinking, "Cough. Awakened skills take too much energy." Jin-tae then sat up, screaming in fear, "Damn it. Why are you targeting me?" Hearing that, he smirked, replying, "You should have lived a better life." Just then, Ji-won's other two teammates caught up to them. "We got him." Jin-tae looked at them and his body trembled, veins popping on his forehead. "Both this one and that one. They all treat me like an idiot. You think I became a boss just through luck?" Jin-tae suddenly pulled a gun from his waistband. He thought to himself, "That guy will catch up soon. I need to take care of these ones first." Jin-tae yelled, "I'll kill every last one of you bastards." Then he pointed the gun at them. The three of them were surprised to hear that, but it seemed no one was afraid of his gun. Ji-won smirked and said, "You think that thing can hit me? Don't you know, guns are useless against people in suits?" Jin-tae suddenly laughed and said, "Of course I know, but this isn't meant to hit you." Then he pointed the muzzle at his own head, shocking everyone. Jin-tae's trembling finger slowly squeezed the trigger. He trembled in fear, while mimicking the sound of a gunshot. Bang bang bang. Seeing Jin Tae's crazy actions, Ji-won broke into a cold sweat and wondered, "What are you doing?" Seo Kyung then looked over and said, "A condition?" He asked back. "A condition?" Do-gil explained. "It's one of the abilities you can use while wearing a suit. You set a special condition, and when it's met, the hormones in your body will fuse with the suit's nanoparticles, thus activating a special ability." Hearing this explanation, he laughed until he drooled, and said, "That's right, my condition is Russian roulette. Every time I win this game of life and death, my bioenergy will double." He pulled the trigger, and when no bullet was fired, the suit's energy suddenly erupted. Jin Tae's eyes bulged as he said, "And right now my power has increased eightfold." Immediately, he teleported behind them, leaving them completely stunned. It took them a moment to realize Jin Tae was now standing behind them. Ji-won and Seo Kyung's eyes widened as they looked back. Do-gil yelled out a warning. "Eve, everyone get ready to fight." But he was cut off as a punch was delivered, sending Do-gil flying into the air as the other two watched. Seo Kyung quickly raised her bow. The arrow shot towards him. Jin Tae laughed and dodged it easily. He rushed towards Seo Kyung, while cursing, "Damn you." She couldn't keep up with his speed, so he knocked her back in an instant. Jin Tae shouted, "You've been annoying me this whole time." Immediately, Ji-won appeared behind him. He raised his fist high, as Jin Tae paused when he realized it. He brought his fist down with immense force, but Jin Tae had already dodged it. He was even standing behind him now. Fast. And strong too. He looked up and said, "But you piece of shit, 8 times stronger, and you're still like crap." Jin Tae suddenly rushed at him and attacked relentlessly. Forcing Ji-won to raise his arms to block, he was pushed into a defensive position, constantly blocking with his arms while thinking, "Faster than even me." Ji-won observed his mutated appearance and thought, "This is like a team leader's level." After coming to that conclusion, Ji-won was suddenly sent flying into the air by him. He fell freely to the ground, while Jin Tae watched him with a disdainful smile. "Amazing. This power is overwhelming. This is the first time I've won so many times in a row. I never expected to be this strong." The three of them slowly got up, panting in exhaustion as they looked up at him. He was breathing heavily and muttered, "Damn it, he's too strong." He could see the powerful energy radiating around Jin Tae's body. Ji-won slowly stood up. He frowned and thought to himself, "He's still far from a team leader's level. The three of us probably aren't enough to beat him, but there's still a chance." Jin Tae slowly approached. "There's no time left. Let's end this." He gave a grotesque smile and rushed forward with his fist cocked back. Ji-won also charged at him at the same time, thinking to himself, "I still have this one thing." Ji-won then activated his ultimate skill. He widened his eyes, and his energy slowly erupted. Jin Tae gathered a massive amount of power into his fist. Preparing for a showdown, he also rushed at Jin Tae with his energy-filled fist, using his shockwave break technique. As Ji-won activated his skill, he thought, "A transcendent skill is like a mathematical formula. To control awakened characteristics, one must adjust the flow of energy according to the situation. So using great power requires a lot of calculation. Therefore, this entire process is simplified and systemized through repetitive practice. This is called a transcendent skill." Back to reality, Jin Tae and Ji-won charged at each other with the extreme speed of their energy. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and said, "Hey, wait a minute." But Ji-won showed no signs of stopping. He immediately threw a punch at Jin Tae's face with all his might. The man had no time to dodge. He then wondered, "Is it over?" As his energy slowly dissipated, Seo Kyung and Do-gil watched from the sidelines, their eyes wide with surprise at the result. But, just then, Jin Tae suddenly used both his hands to gently stop his punch. Ji-won's transcendent skill was still immature. He smirked contemptuously. "Damn it. I thought it was something special, a transcendent skill." His eyes widened in shock. Jin Tae asked in disdain, "This thing is a transcendent skill." Seeing his punch being caught so easily, he stuttered in his mind. It was blocked. It was his turn to counterattack. Jin Tae pulled his leg back, shouting, "This is what you call a real transcendent skill, you bastard." Jin Tae then threw a swift kick to his face, causing Ji-won to lose his balance. He fell completely to the ground, sent flying and sliding across the ground. Do-gil saw him skid past and called out worriedly, "Ji-won." He sweated and thought, that was clearly a transcendent skill. But it failed. What do we do now? What should we do? Right after, both of them tried to attack Jin Tae. Seo Kyung raised her bow and aimed at him, while Do-gil pointed his knives at Jin-tae and cursed loudly. Damn it, as the arrow shot forward. With his teleportation-like speed, his figure vanished from before Do-gil. While he was still confused by what he saw, Jin-tae had appeared behind him, raising his fist with a devilish smile. At that moment, Do-gil immediately spun around. He crossed his forearms to block Jin-tae's punch, but his punch was fundamentally too strong for Do-gil's defense. From behind him, Seo-kyung shot another arrow. He also nimbly dodged it without any trouble. The arrow flew straight past his head. Do-gil looked up. He scowled and thought, "We are too weak, pathetically weak." Seo-kyung thought the same thing as she struggled against Jin-tae. Once that guy uses his life-risking limit, our chances of winning are almost zero. Both of them were immediately pushed back by his two hands coated in a thick layer of energy. Although Seo-kyung and Do-gil were sent flying, they managed to keep their balance with their hands and feet. He continued to reason. The only way with a sliver of hope is for Ji-won to reactivate his transcendent skill. But Ji-won is exhausted now. On the other side, Ji-won was slowly and painstakingly sitting up. Do-gil and Seo-kyung looked at each other, communicating with their eyes. In that case, what we need to do is buy some time. Immediately after, Do-gil charged at Jin-tae, actively attacking him. Ji-won slowly regained his senses. He was still panting and sweating. He looked up, his brows furrowed in tension. Damn it, in front of him was the monster Jin-tae fighting his comrades. The energy surrounding him continuously erupted with power. The energy flow was too complex. I can't imitate it immediately. Is this my limit? He continued to think. The way to beat him right now is still with a transcendent skill. Then he clenched his fist with great effort. I will definitely succeed this time. With that thought, Ji-won immediately charged into their brawl, aiming for Jin-tae. He thought to himself as he ran, but he knows I'll use my transcendent skill, so he'll definitely be on guard. But suddenly, what happened next made him stop in his tracks in surprise. Do-gil was just hit in the stomach by his elbow, but he didn't back down. Gritting his teeth and enduring it, Do-gil immediately seized the opportunity to restrain Jin-tae, locking both his arms. Jin-tae yelled, "You bastard!" Do-gil looked at Seo-kyung, shouting a signal. Seo-kyung, "Now, shoot." She immediately raised her bow, pulling the string back and aiming at his stomach. Seo-kyung then released the string. Jin-tae looked at the arrows flying towards him and cursed. Damn it. But instead of hitting him, Jin-tae had now teleported behind Do-gil, and Seo-kyung's arrow hit him in the back. Jin-tae smiled triumphantly and said, "A hit." He then headbutted Do-gil in the face, shouting, "Get lost." "You bastard." Do-gil's head snapped back, and blood sprayed from his mouth, but his eyes remained wide with determination. Not allowing himself to be stunned, Do-gil once again tightened his grip on the man's arms. Jin-tae scowled, seeing that he wouldn't let go. "Oh, come on now." Jin-tae then realized something. Damn it. The bow. It didn't shoot. Jin-tae looked over at Seo-kyung and saw she hadn't moved. Immediately, he realized again. Could it be? Jin-tae turned his head. He locked eyes with Do-gil hatefully as the young man was still smiling. Suddenly, Ji-won's voice was heard. "Thank you, Ha Do-gil." At that moment, Jin-tae froze. He was currently charging at Jin-tae, gathering power in his arm to deliver a fatal blow. This time I will definitely. Meanwhile, he was still being held tightly by Do-gil. In a panic, Jin-tae turned and elbowed Do-gil in the neck. Damn you, but it was all too late. Ji-won had closed the distance. He glared at him, finishing his sentence. "Succeed for you to see." Immediately after, Ji-won swung his fist at Jin-tae's face. Suddenly, a cracking sound was heard. He had caught his fist again. Jin-tae then laughed triumphantly, saying, "No way that would work," but Ji-won's expression showed no fear. He just put more power into it. This made him feel that something was wrong. When he looked at his own arm, he realized it was twisted, and the bone structure was completely shattered. Jin-tae let out a dazed, "Huh?" Ji-won glared and said, "Shatter." Immediately after, he threw Jin-tae far away. A shockwave erupted from the force of Ji-won's unleashed energy. His body was flung high into the air, tumbling several times from the powerful throw. Ji-won remained below in his attack stance before the energy completely dissipated. Seeing such an unbelievably powerful energy burst, both Do-gil and Seo-kyung were too shocked to close their mouths. Jin-tae finally fell violently to the ground below. Ji-won looked at him and panted after the energy outburst. He was so exhausted he almost collapsed, coughing violently as his two teammates called out worriedly. Ji-won, suddenly, Another sound made the three of them flinch and look up. Jin Tae had gotten up again, but his arm was now horrifically torn apart. His body trembled from exhaustion. He gritted his teeth and cursed. "You bastards." Seo Kyung quickly raised her bow, aiming for Jin Tae's head. Do-gil yelled to stop her. "Don't kill him. We have to capture him alive for questioning." Hearing her teammates protest, she just snorted in dissatisfaction. She then shot an arrow into Jin Tae's shoulder, causing him to stagger back in pain. The three of them once again watched him intently. Jin Tae used his remaining hand to pull out his gun, his body shaking uncontrollably. He thought, "Damn it. It's come to this. I have to use my limit one more time." He then raised the gun again, pointing the barrel at his own head, loudly declaring, "I won't let trash like you." Do-gil and Ji-won approached. He said, "Give up. This is our victory." By then, Jin Tae was almost out of strength. He slumped down with a few growls. On the verge of victory, a strange voice was heard. "Victory." This made Do-gil's eyes widen in surprise. Ji-won frowned and broke into a cold sweat, and Seo Kyung looked up in surprise. They looked behind Jin Tae. A stranger suddenly emerged from the smoky forest. The man wore a white suit with a red tie. His body had strange red stitches. He spread his arms and said, "Do you know what the first reaction to winning is? The trapezius." The smile on his face seemed impossible to extinguish. He then chuckled at White Knight's confusion. His shoulders shook with excited laughter. The man covered his face while laughing. "The trapezius." Haha, but the man's laughter faded as no one in front of him joined in. He said in a calm voice, "Ah, really?" He glared at them, his smile vanishing quickly, replaced by a dangerous threat. "Not funny, huh?" Do-gil, Ji-won, and Seo Kyung were all too shocked to respond. When Jin Tae saw the man, he immediately crawled over, kneeling before him. You're here. All right, now that you're here, they're dead for sure." He pointed at the three of them again. "Please help us. They are White Knight. Please kill them quickly." But instead of rushing like Jin Tae, he remained calm. Still wearing that grotesque smile, the man asked again with a threatening tone, "I asked you, is it not funny?" Making Jin Tae become afraid. "Who?" He then said, "In that case, I'll make you laugh." Then he used his two fingers to stretch Jin Tae's mouth into a smile. This caused the boss to widen his eyes in pain as the corners of his mouth were torn open, being pulled all the way to his ears. The three of them watched, sweating nervously. When the man finally removed his hand from Jin Tae's face, he clutched his own face, now gushing with blood, and screamed. Back to where Tae-hyung was, he had finally dealt with all of Jin Tae's underlings, their unconscious bodies scattered across the floor. He was panting heavily in exhaustion. A heavy feeling slowly began to weigh down on Tae-hyung's body. He clutched his arm and pondered. As expected, a transcendent skill puts too much strain on the body, but the situation doesn't allow for a choice. First, I have to quickly assist the others, Tae-hyung thought, as he walked towards the door, but very suddenly, a voice came from inside the mansion. "You don't kill people, huh? Very righteous. You should be praised." There was a man sitting on the pile of unconscious bodies behind Tae-hyung. He flinched and spun around. The man also wore a white suit and red tie, his face equally grotesque with rock band-like makeup. "An awakened ability, huh? Very interesting. You have my praise. I was very curious just how strong a White Knight captain is, but this is all you've got." The man smirked strangely. Tae-hyung observed in silence with a frown. The man slowly stood up. At that moment, he thought, "This guy is very strong." The man still had a smile on his face as he looked at him. On the other side, the man stood before the three of them. He asked, "White Knight, huh?" Then he slowly stepped forward with a menacing face. "Don't you find it funny?" Ji-won frowned. He asked, "You, who are you?" At the same time, Tae-hyung on the other side asked the same question. The man smirked. "Me, I'm the one you're looking for, Black Moon," he said, and raised his hand, channeling energy into the bodies on the ground. They slowly woke up under the man's control. He was the 7th Demon Commander, Mater. On the other side of the forest, the stitches on his face also slowly ripped open and began to bleed. He gave a crazed smile as the gashes on his face continued to bleed. He replied, "I am a Demon Commander." He was the 3rd Demon Commander. Kamain, somewhere in the forest, a black van was parked on the edge of the woods. Jong was chatting with Sua. "Hey, don't worry so much. This campaign will end easily. Captain Seo Kyung is participating too, after all," she said worriedly. "But I don't know if we should have released that electronic dog. Jiang placed a water bottle on the table. Jiwon's plan wasn't bad. He's completely different from how he looks. His brain works really fast. Su-ah was silent for a moment after hearing that. Suddenly, the comms connected. On the other end, came the voice of someone from the team. It was Jiwon's voice. "Manager, we're in danger." Jiang asked in surprise. "What happened?" He replied. "Black Moon has appeared." She broke out in a cold sweat. "Black Moon?" Jiang asked loudly again. "Why did they suddenly show up there? How many of them? Where's the captain? Is he still there?" Ji-won replied. "No. We were separated from the captain, and only one of them has appeared." She was confused. "One," Ji-won added. "A demon commander." Hearing that name, both of them were wide-eyed with shock. Ji-won said again, "A demon commander has appeared." On the other side, the three of them were facing the third demon commander. Do-gil looked at him in silence. He pondered. "A demon commander. It's definitely a demon commander. A key figure of Black Moon. What should we do? We have to retreat." But when he looked again, Do-gil saw that Ji-won was nearly exhausted. He thought again. But Ji-won is too exhausted. Do-gil continued to think. "Lim Seo-kyung and I are too. It's too difficult for all of us to escape at once." Suddenly, a strange movement made him flinch and look up. Jin-tae was slowly getting up from behind Kamain. His body was trembling. "Damn it. These bastards." He glanced back while still maintaining his smile. He now stood up straight. His face was now deformed, with his mouth torn at the corners, always looking like he was smiling. One after another. "You damn dogs." Kamain laughed with amusement. "You're still alive." The boss's face slowly began to contort with rage. Jin-tae yelled back. "Still alive? You rip a guy's mouth open, and you think he'd still be alive? I'll kill you all. Kill every last one of you. This is all because of you. You ordered this. And now you dare do this to me." Despite that, Kamain laughed without hesitation. "I was going to kill you anyway. It's time to destroy the evidence." Jin-tae looked at his torn mouth. He said, "Right. You were planning to use and discard me from the beginning. I get it, I'll do the same, but do you think I'll die that easily? I've already risked my life anyway. You bastard." In his rage, Jin-tae pointed the gun barrel up under his jaw. His hand trembled as he slowly squeezed the trigger. Kamain tilted his head, watching with a mocking smile. Everyone was silent, watching to see the result. He continuously let out grunts as he tried to suppress his fear. With each subsequent trigger pull, the cylinder slowly rotated as the trigger was squeezed. Suddenly, his energy erupted once again. Jin-tae had succeeded again. His power exploded amidst Jin-tae's maniacal laughter. He shouted, "All right, success." Kamain kept his smile as he looked at him. Jin-tae's face was now extremely grotesque, with a grin that revealed all his teeth. He yelled, 6 out of 7. Now, I'm immortal now." After 6 trigger pulls, not a single bullet was fired. Jin-tae looked at Kamaini. He said triumphantly, "Hey, Demon Commander, you're dead for sure. You boring bastard," he said and charged at him. Do-gil whispered to his comrades, "His limit. He's stronger again." Just thinking about it made him tremble in fear. So just how many times stronger is he? But then, Do-gil looked closer. "No. Not now. This is our chance," he deduced as he looked at Kamain, who was using his own blood as an energy source. "Demon Commander. I don't know how strong he is, but if Park Jin-tae has leveled up this much, even the Demon Commander doesn't stand a chance." Jin-tae then charged at him. Do-gil had a final thought. "We have to take advantage of them fighting each other." Then he informed the other two, Ji-won, Seo-kyung, "Hurry," but something made them all fall silent and look back. Jin-tae was now pierced in multiple places by Kamain's blood power. His blood could become sharp iron rods. With just his arm, he had turned his blood into a deadly weapon. The man's mouth hung open, his eyes slowly rolling back as he lost blood. Jin-tae weakly whispered his final words, "Bastard. Damn it." His body then went limp, while Kamain below him still held up his arm. The three of them watched the quick fight and stammered, unable to believe their eyes. "Just one hit. Is dead." He slowly retracted his arm, and the blood, the iron rods made of blood, slowly turned back into liquid. He looked at them and calmly said, "Now, shall we continue our story?" Immediately, Taehyung on the other side was called by Jung. Captain, we're in danger," he replied. "Go ahead." "Code 0, she urgently reported. "A demon commander has appeared at Ji-won's location." Hearing that, Taehyung frowned with worry. He just replied, "Understood. Requesting support. Prioritize survival on the Apple side." Jong then said, "I've already sent the request. He will provide further updates." Taehyung said his final words before hanging up. "I'm on my way." In front of him, Mater smiled with amusement as he overheard the opponent's call. "So, a tough spot, huh? That's my plan. To separate you, to make you easier to deal with." Taehyung looked at the people being controlled by Mater and said, "If you're really a demon commander, then this is indeed a difficult situation." The man narrowed his eyes in satisfaction. "I knew it. I really am a genius." Taehyung then bent his knees, slowly gathering power. "Well, in that case, I'll have to end this quickly." He immediately rushed at the man with lightning speed. Using his photon flash technique, Mater saw Taehyung approach so quickly. He just calmly remarked, "He's fast." Suddenly, someone else charged at him. Mater said, "But still, he doesn't get any points for it, huh?" He immediately used his arm to control the other man's body, kicking Taehyung to the side, interrupting his technique. Taehyung's eyes widened in surprise. Very few could keep up with that move. So fast. This isn't just simple control. He's strong. Suddenly, the man's body was lifted into the air by him and twisted like a puppet, with its joints bent at grotesque angles. Taehyung wondered, "What's more? What's with that weird movement?" Suddenly, two more men under Mater's control charged at him. Taehyung immediately ducked as the man swung his fist at him. He thought to himself, "Each one of them moves so well. How is it that—" He immediately zipped behind them, but in that instant, Taehyung realized something. He could see energy threads wrapped around their joints to move them. Taehyung deduced, "Threads, so he's using threads to control them." He ducked again to dodge the next attack, but unexpectedly, something caught his face. Taehyung was lucky to have blocked it with his forearm. When the man couldn't hit with his hand, he arched his back and kicked at him. Taehyung gritted his teeth from the powerful impact. He immediately retreated, keeping his distance from the man. Without any wind-up, it's hard to predict his movements. Taehyung was now standing behind Mater, who asked with amusement, "How about it? Pretty unique, right? That's my ability. I can control corpses." In response, he just said with a disgusted tone, "That's vile." Mater suddenly bent his neck a full 90 degrees, just to look back and smile at Taehyung. "Oh, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment." He then controlled even more bodies. They slowly got up like zombies. Mater asked contemptuously, "What do you think? Can you handle it?" The difference in numbers is pretty big. He still remained calm, grabbing his tie and replying, "Don't worry." Then he pulled it forward, activating his suit. Now then, behind him were dozens of enemies leaping at him. Taehyung frowned, his pupils glowing with energy. He activated his transcendent skill, then spread his arms wide, creating a whirlwind that sucked them all in without any physical contact. It was his ultimate technique, gale/kick. Immediately, all the bodies he controlled were sent flying. His energy threads were also severed by Taehyung. The wind blew in his face as his puppets were thrown back with great force. Taehyung stood there with energy coursing through his body. At his feet lay the bodies of all those he had just faced, but there was no energy left in them. He looked at the man with a frown and said, "You're the only one left." But something made Taehyung stop in surprise. The men once again jolted back to their feet, and energy began to flow within them again. Their bodies trembled in pain from being unable to control themselves. The man's eyes were wide with fear. He let out a loud scream, his face contorted in agony. One by one, they all screamed in pain, which made Taehyung a bit confused. They all continued to be Mater's puppets, being moved and suspended high in the air as if they were flying, even though they were still conscious and able to feel the pain of their twisted joints. "Help me. It hurts so much." Hearing their terrible, desperate screams, Taehyung gritted his teeth in distress. "Damit?" Mater laughed with delight. His hands continued to manipulate the strings. "I told you, they are still alive." A man suddenly rushed at Taehyung and threw a punch. He immediately dodged to the side. Mater laughed and continued, "And I can also control the dead." At that, the man's body trembled as he was forced to perform some strange movement. His head grotesquely bent backwards, just as Mater had done. The man coughed up blood, his face contorted in pain. He was forced to lunge at Taehyung again to his surprise. Taehyung frowned and yelled, "You bastard." He immediately leaned to the side, swinging a kick at the man's face. This knocked him backward, while his body remained stiff from the pull of the strings. Immediately after, the man was forced to retaliate, kicking back at Taehyung. He instinctively blocked it with his forearm, but the kick still made Taehyung wince. The man laughed with amusement, asking contemptuously, "What do you think? My puppets, they will never fall." The other man continued to throw a barrage of blows at Taehyung. He immediately ducked down, nimbly dodging out of the attack range. Taehyung took that opportunity to draw his hand back. Taking out a knife from his jacket, he zipped behind the man, raising the knife, and slashed at the string controlling the man. But it backfired. Instead of cutting the string cut right through the blade like paper. Immediately, the severed blade was sent flying behind him. Taehyung's eyes widened in surprise as another string shot towards him. He dodged to the side with incredible speed. Mater's control string grazed past him. Seeing Taehyung's surprising reflexes, the man laughed and said, "Too bad. I could have turned you into a puppet." Taehyung wiped the sweat from his face, thinking, "So that's how it is. I have to avoid touching the strings too. And those strings are unreasonably durable. With this kind of toughness, even the suit could be pierced. It's not just a normal control string." Another two men charged at him. They screamed in pain as their bodies were forced to move towards Taehyung. He frowned and muttered, "Then that's right. I have to aim for the controller." At that moment, Taehyung's gaze focused on Mater, who was standing behind and controlling the other two men. His eyes widened in surprise at what he saw next. Upon closer inspection, Mater's body was also covered in strings. He wondered, but the path to him, he's blocked it all off. Taehyung glanced behind him, realizing he was also surrounded by the man. "Damn it. Behind me too. Even if I use Gale Rush to speed up, I'll have to adjust my speed to get through this complex web of threads. Not only do I have to deal with the puppets, but I also have to be careful to avoid touching the strings. Dealing with both at the same time is impossible." The two men charged at him, kicking at him simultaneously, leaving him with no choice but to defend. After successfully blocking with his forearms, he lowered his guard, cursing under his breath. "Damn it." Taehyung then continued to gather power in his legs. He shot straight at Mater in one go, pushing both men acidly. Taehyung thought to himself, "My transcendent ability. I can only use it twice more." In that case, before he could finish the thought, dozens more people charged at him from behind. Realizing he was being blocked, Taehyung gritted his teeth. Damn it. With the situation being so dire, Taehyung was forced to use his skill. He glared, and his energy erupted once more. Transcendent skill. Mater was surprised to see it. Oh, that was fast. Before his eyes, Taehyung was leaping continuously from one person to another after landing a few punches on them. His simultaneous movement and attacking would probably shorten the distance to Mater. Seeing Taehyung unleash his transcendent skill and begin to counterattack his puppets, the man watched with excited eyes. Taehyung saw his expression and wondered, in this situation he's still trying to cause damage. No, they're getting up again. He realized the man's puppets were slowly rising. Then, Taehyung's gaze shifted to the strings hanging before him. They are the cause. With that thought, he immediately slaughtered all of them in an instant, with the effect he had just applied. Their bodies were crushed, and blood splattered everywhere. Taehyung then rushed at Mater. There were no more obstacles around him. With the thought, I have to make it so he can't use his puppets anymore. Seeing his determination to the point of slaughter, Mater clapped his hands with amusement and praised him. 10 points. The man slowly stepped forward. That's right. That's the answer. You have to wipe out everything that's annoying you. I have a compliment for you. Taehyung still maintained a serious expression. Observing his every move, Mater then smirked dangerously. But a White Knight agent killing people, shouldn't you save them even if they're bad? Taehyung then widened his stance. He calmly said, Of course not. His answer surprised the man a little. Taehyung slowly approached and said, But being an agent doesn't mean you can always save everyone. So to make the best choice, I will kill you. And I have decided to kill you. When he heard that, Mater contemptuously pointed at himself, as if asking, Me. Taehyung charged forward and said his final words. To save my comrades. Seeing the certainty in his actions, Mater laughed loudly and raised his hands, preparing to lay his strings. You're confident, but can you break through? His strings were woven together in a hard-to-see pattern. As Taehyung charged, he thought, from the blade-like shadow around him, it seems he's using extreme electricity. Then I just need to break through this web of strings. With that thought, he immediately weaved through each gap in the strings. Finally, Taehyung had reached Mater from behind. He finished his sentence. I will capture him. The man's eyes also widened in surprise. Suddenly, the man calmly spoke. But hey, which surprised Taehyung greatly. Many other strings shot towards him without warning. Taehyung froze for a moment in surprise. At that very moment, his strings shot towards Taehyung's back and calves. He was lucky to have defended in time, but the strings had also pierced through his palms. The moment the strings left his hands, Taehyung collapsed. Having lost his balance, Mater laughed. He said as he continued to manipulate the strings. Because you're always hiding behind them. Close combat is your weakness, huh? I'm not the type who just uses puppets. Right after that, he continued to shoot strings at Taehyung, which made him widen his eyes in surprise as he hadn't stood up yet. The strings shot forward forcefully, but Taehyung was still able to dodge to the side. Those strings didn't just pierce and retract, they also shaped the position they were stuck in. Then, Mater continued to lay more strings, turning the room into a maze. He gave a sinister smile. Surprised are you? Characters of this type usually run out of puppets, and then that's it. I hate that. Finally, he aimed his strings at Taehyung. He immediately ducked down to avoid the path of the strings. Taehyung looked up at the thing that almost killed him. The man continued to play around, shooting strings at Taehyung again. He did a somersault to back out of the attack range, but when Taehyung's feet stopped at the wall, the string also struck the wall with force, right below his toes. Another string whipped out. He quickly jumped up. It also stuck firmly to the wall without retracting. Taehyung looked ahead. He gritted his teeth. Damn it, since when was this entire area covered in strings? In front of him, Mater's strings had filled the room. As if the odds were already set, Mater continued to taunt him. Oh, you dodged them all, but what are you going to do now? There's nowhere left to run. At that, Taehyung stood still, panting as he looked at him. Mater gave a wicked smile. He raised his hand and prepared to manipulate the next set of strings. Well, you've worked hard. I will make good use of that body. As the next set of strings shot out again, Taehyung gritted his teeth. Damn it. Suddenly, another voice was heard. Transcendent skill, which made Taehyung's eyes widen in surprise. The sword of the man who had just appeared was drawn. With energy running along its blade, he called out the name of his technique, Jade Slash, and unleashed a powerful slash, destroying the traps of strings before him, one by one. Mater's strings were all severed, as easily as a single thread. This made him jolt back in shock. After clearing the obstacles, the familiar figure spoke. I told you so. You should carry at least one decent weapon. That bastard. He was Ju-ha. And surprisingly, he had arrived just in time to help Taehyung.